For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Draft Day 2 set to begin in a couple of hours of time. The Winnipeg Jets, they have a new member of their organization, Sasha Bumidian, drafted late last night. After what seemed to be an interminable first round, Sasha is going to join us at 11 a.m. Central Time this morning. So you can stay tuned for that. We're going to go a little bit long this morning with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show so that we can bring you an interview with Sasha, as he is now a member of the Winnipeg Jets. But for now, I say good morning to my colleagues, Dave Manouk and Ezra Ginsburg. I am your host, Drew Mindell. We welcome everyone to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. Gentlemen, great to see you. Yes, Phil Smithson, it feels like the first round just finished. It was certainly a long evening, but the Winnipeg Jets, they're happy. You know, no team ever says they're not happy, but they're happy with the new acquisition in Sasha Bumidian.
Absolutely. Good morning, boys. And we had Craig Button on 2 weeks ago, and we asked Craig, who had Sasha Bumidian at 28th overall. And obviously, guys, like, we didn't necessarily expect Craig Button's rankings to be completely accurate, but in this case they were, because the Jets take him at 28th overall. And like Dave, Lyndon Lakovic was another guy we asked Craig Button about, and he went right before to the Washington Capitals, right? So I'm pretty excited about this pick, guys. And obviously, like, Bumidian is 2 or 3 years away at least. He's not a guy that's going to jump right into the NHL, obviously, right, guys? But, I mean, there's a lot of upside. He was named best defenseman at the World Under-18s, winning a silver medal with Team Sweden. Like, that's impressive, guys. When you're able to put up 14 points in 7 games against the best players in the world at that age, Dave, that's impressive. So we're obviously going to be talking a lot about Sasha, and Jets fans are excited because there's now another Swedish prospect in the D-Corps system.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say they bucked the trend of Swedish second-round picks, Ezzy, of the Lundmarks, the Salamonsons, the Gustafsons, the Torgersons, and they went with a Swede in the first. Well, but they went with the Swede in the first round, although he was born in Finland, raised in Sweden, spent the last 4 years in Ohio, and now he's being drafted by a Canadian team. So his passport is well filled out. We had a chance to catch up with him in his first media availability yesterday. A very eager young man, very excited to join the Jets organization. We almost didn't make it, of course, because that draft was, it's funny, guys, like, Ezzy and Drew and I have obviously gone to drafts in the past, and we stopped going to them live, but we still covered them, of course, and we've covered the COVID drafts. And I have to say, last night, I was like, oh my God, they've done 3 picks in 30 minutes. This is going to take forever. And about 2 hours in, I think it was the Blue Jackets were selecting 14th overall. And I thought, is it going to actually take till 10 o'clock for the Jets to make the 28th overall pick? And Ezzy, it didn't quite take till 10, but it was about 10 minutes to 10. So it was a very, very long night. But the pick was in. The Jets got the player they wanted, obviously. And we had a chance to hear from GM Kevin Cheveldayoff, who spoke about Sasha, and obviously to speak to Sasha himself.
Don't you guys remember, you're talking about the time and the length of everything. Don't you remember, it must have been during COVID. I think it had to have been during COVID, when the NHL, they didn't have everyone all together. And we were broadcasting the Day 2 draft live for the old radio station. And because they had nobody had any planes to catch, Day 2 just went on and on and on. I think it was like that was the one. That was true. That was the one I made the joke about Elliot Friedman, because he had just shaved his beard. Remember, he had that really
like
Right.
goatee beard,
Like the
and then he
playoff
shaved,
beard.
and then he shaved, and I said, "This draft has gone on so long. Friedman's beard has now grown back."
That's right. And I do have an element of fear that round 2 is going to be like, or not round 2, round 2 through 7 is going to be like that again today. But fortunately, we'll have it covered in its entirety, of course, on the website, illegalcurve.com. But we're with you now for the next couple of hours, talk about the pick. You know, again, anybody who says one way or the other that they know this is a great pick, or they know that this isn't a great pick, you know, you don't. I mean, frankly, you know, you don't. You might have opinions on it. You might not like it. I saw Doug, God bless you, Doug, saying he doesn't like the pick. He doesn't think the Jets need another undersized defenseman, and that's a totally valid opinion. We don't know.
Schenn is 6'1" undersized, by the way.
Well, when you're in the NHL, when you're not a 6'4", tree out there, you know, you're undersized at 6'1". But I understand the sentiment, and that's a perfectly reasonable opinion. I don't know one way or the other if it's going to work out or not. But, you know, you just have to sort of, you know, you see where it goes from here. So, you know, that's the beauty of the draft, is that it is a hope springs eternal. I saw, you know, our friends at The Athletic came out with their, you know, of course, their winners and losers from the draft. I think it was our buddy Scott Wheeler, who, you know, and I think loser is not the right word and winner is not the right word. It's about, you know, are you getting the value you think that you're getting? And he, you know, so Scott didn't like the 3 selections made by the Pittsburgh Penguins when they made it. He did like the selection, of Bumidian when the Jets made it, thinking, yeah, there's some value there. There's a guy there who, you know, maybe should have gone a few picks earlier based on initial analysis or initial viewing or initial research into them. You know, I shrug my shoulders because we don't know and we won't know for a number of years. But it seems, at least on its face, you know, anytime you can bring into your organization a left shot defenseman who's fleet of foot, they say it's his decision making that needs a little bit of time, things to work on in that front. Frankly, decision making I think will come with experience. Skating, high level skating at this age is certainly a very good attribute, certainly a very good asset to have.
Absolutely, Drew. And the skating is what stands out, right, guys? And nobody should be surprised. Like Mark Hillier and his scouting staff, what do they really put a huge stock in is skating, right? Like whether it's Nikolaj Ehlers, whether it's Josh Morrissey, Alphonse Frey is a good skater, right? And so Sasha Bumidian is that prototypical smooth skating Swedish defenseman, right? And you know, you mentioned, Drew, like Dave posted the consolidated rankings from our friends at Elite Prospects. Sam Cosentino had Bumidian at 17 on his list, right? So it just shows you that, you know, some scouts, I think Shane Malloy of Hockey Prospects Radio had him 15th, Dave. So, you know, most people had him in that kind of 23 to 29 range. And that's exactly where he went. But he's definitely someone who, let's put it this way, if he slipped to the second round, I think a lot of scouts would have been really talking about a steal for whoever got him in the second round. So you're right, though, Drew. I mean, it's hard to project, but just think about the left side of the Jets defense in 3 to 4 years. Could be Josh Morrissey, Dylan Sandberg, and a young Sasha Bumidian, right? Like that's something to get really excited about. And then we talked about Alphonse Frey. He's another guy who factors in. Elias Salamonson, Dave, I mean, you know better than anybody. He's a guy who's going to be in the NHL sooner rather than later. It might not be, you know, the 25-26 season, but, you know, you've called him, you've dubbed him, and I'll always give you credit for it, Dave. You've called him Dylan Sandberg light on the other side, right? So I think it's exciting. And I think, you know, the Jets have definitely drafted a lot of forwards in the past, right? Whether it's Cole Perfetti or Chaz Lucius or Rutger McGroarty. So I think, you know, it fills a need. Not that the Jets, look, I think I mentioned Lyndon Lakovic. He was the outstanding player for the Moose Jaw Warriors, played with Braden Yager. I wonder if the Jets would take Lakovic, Dave, because, you know, Craig Button thought he was going to go much earlier as well. But I think at the end of the day, the Jets get Bumidian, and I think there's a lot to like about this prospect.
There's no question. Sorry, Dave. There's no question that the Jets need to sort of shore up some of the prospect group on the back end, almost, you know, to some extent more than the forwards, but it's not like it's not like the cupboard is overflowing in forwards. When you're drafting 28th overall, you draft the best player that you have on your board. Doesn't matter what position that player plays. You know, It so happens that he happens to be a left shot defenseman, which is probably an area of need for the Winnipeg Jets. So, you know, when need matches up to want, it's a good situation. But at that point, you're just drafting the highest ranked guy because frankly, who knows? You should always draft the highest ranked guy. Everybody else you've already drafted over the years is a sunk cost. It's already done. Don't compound an error by not taking a guy because he's already, the guy you took 2 years ago plays the same position.
Yeah, no, and as we've always said, you're not drafting for now, you're drafting for later. Sure. And the one thing with Sasha that I think is interesting is the fact that he was the youngest player.
And he's up.
I know. Go finish your thought, then we'll bring Kenny in.
Okay, well, he says he needs a few minutes, which is about. I've got the tweet set for 9:30. It's 9:11, but that's okay. It's
funny though, Dave. I could see Drew smirking because Kenny's always early. If you know anything about Kenny, he's always early. Well, this is really early.
But before you joined me and Dave, as I said to Dave, how early is Ken going to arrive? And so then we thought about 9:15, so he's even earlier than the 9:15 time frame.
Okay, well, I mean, we don't have to make fun of Kenny too much longer. We'll get him in here in a few minutes. Just like maybe we'll bring him in at 9:15. We'll wait till that 9:15 mark. But no, the one thing I was going to say about Sasha that I think Drew, you talk about a guy who, or as he was talking about a guy who would have been considered a steal, I guess, if he fell into the second round. A lot of, again, from what I'm reading, I'm not going to pretend to be some expert because I obviously don't follow him when he hadn't been drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. But it just seems because he was the youngest guy in the NCAA, there was a bit of a learning curve there for him going up against older, faster, stronger competition. And maybe that is why it limited his production a little bit, and maybe why he was not as highly ranked. And had he played, in the USHL for another year, perhaps he ends up getting drafted a little bit higher because he's producing a little bit more. So that's one of the things I had read. Again, we'll know more in a few years as to whether we can make big predictions about what kind of selection this was, 28th overall.
Let's bring him in right now. He's our good friend. He's got his water bottle. Kenny's water bottle on the screen. Kenny's water bottle in the chat. Everything coming together in one. Our friend Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Kenny, good morning.
Yes, good morning to the Curves. Always a treat to be with you. And yes, always try to be early. I live by the Randy Carlyle mantra. If you're not 5 minutes early or 10 minutes late, that was an early special on the Manitoba Moose beat way back in the day, even before Dave Minuk was all over the Manitoba Moose beat.
Well, what time do you get to the tea? To your tea time usually. I know it's rare that on a Saturday morning you're available. Of course, it's because
it always comes back to the golf, Kenny.
It's summer, so Kenny's focused. I know what Kenny.
Yes, the tour is in full swing, even though it's been on pause here, and will be paused for most of development camp. But try to get there early, Drew. I was once a trunk to tea guy, and then I learned that was not a very good formula. So always good to hit a few swings in before. And did manage to get out to Glendale recently. So course is looking good over there.
It is looking good over there. I was there not that long ago as well. And anyways, Kenny, the pick, Sasha Bumidian, as I was saying, time will tell. But it seems like on its face, there's a reasonable. It was a reasonable draft pick with good value that late in a very long first round last night.
Yeah, I mean, and let me start by saying, I'm the same as Dave, and I mean, this time of year always makes me laugh a little bit for obvious reasons because the socials are fired up with people who have read 1,000 scouting reports but have actually never watched the player play one single time. And here's the thing, as Dave mentioned. I am one of those people who, I do not profess. I love this time of the year. I love the draft. I love the interactions. Way different than last year, being at the Sphere rather than being in your home office, trying to have a buzz or a feel on, what's going on or who's talking to whom, and could there be a trade here? Last year it was Rutger mania at this time. Could he be moved in the first? There's the Capitals. What about Connor McMichael? When the team is huddled into their offices and you're at home, I mean, it's hard to have that part of it. But, again, I didn't watch a lot of the U18s. So, again, I don't profess to say, I watched Sasha play, 58 shifts or 200 shifts this year. But what I do know is from, talking to people who know the player a little bit, he was one of the people that was, on the list of potentials for the Jets based on where they were picking and what they were looking for in terms of need. For me, I wondered if Blake Fiddler would be the guy at that pick, just based on maybe handedness and size. Blake's obviously a guy who's had a great year. Foot speed, obviously nowhere in the vicinity of Sasha Bumidian right now anyway. But, he's a guy I talked with Jason Bukala of Sportsnet about earlier in the week, and he was high on him. Yes, the ceiling is very high. There's still some, rounding of the edges, I think, is maybe a way I would put it. But this is a guy who, as Dave mentioned, youngest guy in the NCAA for a good chunk of that season, and at a program where you're being, it's an A1 program with Jay Pandolfo as a coach. So we often talk about, in the Western League, going to a program, where they treat you like pros, like London. So we wondered if Henry Brustevich might be the guy because of all the time they spent watching Jacob Julian over the last couple of years. Similar guy in terms of, kind of he's not as offensive as his brother Hunter, but, also a guy who played behind Sam Dickinson and Oliver Bonk. So you're talking about points, Drew. His points don't jump off the page because guess what? There weren't a lot of PP1 minutes available for Henry this year. So I wondered if it was one of those three guys were kind of near the top of my list. We'd heard, plenty about Milton Gastrin. We look at future behavior or past behavior for future behavior. Here's a guy who was a captain for Sweden on that same team that Bumidian was on, a guarantee kind of NHLer, but maybe only a third liner or a middle six guy. So you wonder if it's ceiling versus, steady Eddie kind of thing, especially when you don't pick again until the third round. But, it sounds like it's, again, draft grades are flying off the shelves at a frequent pace. And, again, a lot of those people giving grades do know what they're talking about because their job is to grade prospects. I get it. But the reality is all of us know on this program, we're not going to know for 2 to 5 years who is the best pick, who is a great pick, who's a bust. And even then, but I hate that term because at the end of the day, we're projecting 18 and 19-year-old kids. And guess what? As much as we're trying to find an algorithm for it, and the algorithm is helpful in terms of who's going to be there and who you pick, it's almost impossible to know who is going to be the most driven of that group. But what we saw from Sasha last night, David, pretty impressive kid, exuding confidence, and I mean that in the most positive way. This is not someone who's cocky and thinks he's got it all figured out. But this is not someone who is lacking a vision of what his next steps on the journey are going to look like. And I love that about the player. We've all been at those drafts and we almost always hear the same quotes. I didn't hear any of those quotes from Sasha yesterday. Yes, the dream come true. The dream come true got clicked on the bingo card, boys. But everything else I thought was genuine enthusiasm and a guy who knows what he wants and knows what he has to do to get it. And that's what impressed me most about that very brief, 9.5 minute conversation. I look forward to having more conversations with him is my long-winded way of saying that.
And we look forward to having him join us at just after 11 o'clock this morning. So
good poll, boys. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny. So everyone can stay tuned for that. He'll join us as we go into overtime later on this morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Kenny, just getting away from Sasha for a second, were you surprised that there weren't more moves in the first round, or were you not surprised because of the Noah Dobson trade that included 2 first-rounders going to the Islanders?
I mean, I thought there were certainly more moves than last year. So there was a little bit of, more player moves I might have expected for sure. I thought there was a little bit more juggling of picks from it, but this is kind of when you have so many teams that have multiple picks,
right? You
kind of wonder if more movement. I thought the movement was still more than I expected, to be honest. There was a chance the Jets could move down, but this is a classic scenario. And again, I'm glad he didn't say it, but we all know that it's true. The reason the Jets picked at 28th is because Sasha was high on their list. If he's not high on their list, they probably trade down to 29, 30, 31, or 32, right? So, again, I think you saw teams that had needs that filled needs. Again, we don't want to get going crazy here, but if you're a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers, Ezzy, and you're wearing orange today, how do you not love Porter Moritone and Nesbitt, right? Nesbitt was the second pick that they got. I mean,
Yep.
these are Broad Street bullies, it looks like to me, right? So after we've seen the sort of cultural shift, and now you have the sort of, this is sort of the first real Briere Jones kind of drop kick on the rest of the league. So I love those picks for Philadelphia. And yes, they're trying to move their way up. And hey, Kyle Dubas taking a lot of heat for the whole, we're the only team that's not trying to win. Well, I love the picks that they made. Like, again, adding size and skill, I think is always a good idea when you're playing in that metropolitan division. So, long-winded way again of saying I thought there was a little bit more movement than I was expecting. But again, I also thought it was going to be way different than last year. You just didn't know how it was going to unfold because of the variation on the lists. There's not a big variation on the players on the list, but the seeding, if you will, is so different. And when you talk to the guys who know, the Sam Cosentinos and the Jason Buchlas, kind of after 12, or even if you want to say after 20, 20 to 50, pretty wide open in a lot of these scenarios here. So I did think that would mean other teams would want to jump up and try to get their guy. But yeah, I mean, in terms of player movement, I thought there would be a little bit more because, this is rumor season. And, if you can't get that free agent that you're trying to, have stocked on the shelf, maybe you can entice someone with the first round draft pick. But I think this is a great example of, it's a high pressure time for teams. And if you're one of those teams that was not in the Sweet 16 and you think that you're knocking on the door, you don't want to trade it. You don't want an extra first round pick for a player, or you don't want to move out a player for that extra first round pick because you're trying to get in the playoffs like the Utah Mammoth are, right? So I think it's a super interesting time. And we always, we're looking forward to day 2 as we always are. But let's be honest, the focus on the show is going to be on what's going to happen, on July 1st, with the exception of Sasha, reliving his excellent day. We're all even more curious,
Tuesday.
Day 2, fine. It'll be interesting, but see in a few years, fellas, what's going to happen in the next, 4 or 5 days here leading into July 1st and going to July 1st.
Well, I was going to ask you about Sasha, Kenny, but if you want to,
no, I'd like to stay there. No, I'm surprised. I'm surprised as he turned the page.
We're always surprised at what Ezzy does.
For Saturday, for Saturday's draft, interesting activities. But I'd love to talk more about Sasha because surprisingly, fellas, I have a little bit more to say about him.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, let's get into
Dave,
it.
I think what Kenny's saying is this isn't a Sasha Bumidian pop-up show. That's not what it is.
No, he's willing to go there, though. He's willing to go there.
I am.
Okay, well, Ken, I'll stick back to the Jets' 28th overall selection, and one of the things that I found interesting, and Mike obviously brought it up, but his passport has been stamped. Born in Finland, raised in Sweden, spent the last 4 years in Ohio, and now drafted by a Canadian team. But from your perspective, do you see an advantage for a guy who's has that international experience? Obviously, plays internationally for Sweden, but is currently developing, obviously USHL and now at the NCAA level.
Yeah, super interesting development path for sure, right? So born in Finland, his mom is from Finland. As long as the research is accurate, and I think that it is. His dad played, won 2 championships with Karpat in Finland. It's so interesting, right? We're always looking for trends. And so here's a guy, we're looking for lineage, right? So I thought Horikoff was going to be the guy for the Jets, fellas. Again, big, strong guy, lots of upside, kind of guaranteed NHLer. And yes, while we understand the concerns about the U.S. development program, to me, he's a Canadian guy, right? Horikoff was a Canadian. Yeah. Sean was a Canadian. Yes, he was living in the States. Fine. So I didn't see any concerns there. But Bumidian, so interesting, his path, right? Grows up in Stockholm, but, spends time in the Ohio Blue Jackets AAA program, goes to Youngstown of the USHL. And for folks who have forgotten, the last time the Jets went to the Youngstown well, it worked out fairly well for them. And for those of you who are forgotten, that was Kyle Connor, who played for Youngstown before his bonkers season with the University of Michigan Wolverines. So, and the NHL lineage, it's not a prerequisite, but I think it's helpful. And we saw the reasons on that call why it was helpful, Dave. This is a guy who has a father to lean on, has grown up around the game, a great resource to help him in his journey. And again, the fact that he's already come over to North America and had all the adaptation and adjustment period underneath him is a huge, huge perk, right? Yes, he's Swedish, but he's living in the States since he was a teenager. So he's not having to worry about transitioning from, European ice or Olympic ice sheet to North American game. He's been playing a North American game. It reminds me of Ivan Provorov coming over and going to Wilkes-Barre, and playing some of his, hockey and development hockey there. And again, I haven't watched him enough, but I've seen enough clips and read enough scouting reports to know that this guy's an offensive dynamo, but also someone who has worked on the defensive part of his game. Mm-hmm. And Dave, to your point earlier, I love the fact that he didn't have eye-popping numbers at the NCAA level, but then when he went back with his peers in Frisco at the U18s, it was domination station, fellas. 13 apples and 14 points. To set a record, most points ever by a defenseman in a tournament that has featured a lot of skilled defensemen. So, and again, the fact that he played with Tom Wallinder as a partner quite a bit last year, big benefit, because where's Wallinder going? He's signed his deal and going, at least to Abbotsford and maybe to Vancouver. So, I love how he talked about, when I asked him about the influence his dad has had, he's been with me every step of the way. And he also knows what is ahead. And the beauty here, guys, Jets aren't just drafting all-star NHL lineage people. Joseph, his father, played 47 NHL games. So he knows that the struggle is real to be a full-time NHLer. And not that it was a struggle. He made it, and he's in the NHL register. But he also spent the majority of his time playing in Europe. And while he enjoyed that time, his son now will have the opportunity to learn from the journey and say, you know what, as great as those leagues that you played in, Dad, are, I want to be a 15-year NHLer and continue to get better and better. So again, obvious benefits with this player, incredible skater, heads up player, working hard on his defending. And I think that passion and that drive, yes, everyone wants to be in the NHL, and almost all those NHL kids. And I remember this story so clearly because I've been thinking about the Jonathan Toews draft because I was there and because of what's happened recently. I remember Michael Grabner, when the Canucks picked him in the first round, looking me square in the eye as a 6'1", 165-pound soaking wet winger.
He probably looked a little bit over your head, to be honest.
He definitely did.
He wasn't looking at your eye at 6'1".
And that head had hair, Drew. But he said he was going to be essentially insinuated he would be in the NHL next year.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been covering the American League for a few years. I'm like, I walked away from the interview saying, love the confidence, Michael, but I don't think so. You will be going back to junior, and then you will be coming to the Manitoba Moose after that. And again, great NHL career, but these guys almost always think they can just airlift themselves, skip a few of the steps. Right. And that's the beauty of having a father like Joseph. He knows you're not skipping the steps, but he also knows what is required to have the steps come on time and then get to where you want to get to probably as quickly as possible, but also while soaking in every moment of that development curve. And again, we have very knowledgeable fans in our market, but playing in the bean pot is something that, yes, they're showing it on TV a little bit more often than they used to, but these are high pressure environment games for NCAA players that, this isn't just a, in-season tournament type of thing where it's, an exhibition. These teams hate one another and they want to win that little trophy. Mm-hmm. So the other beauty of the
Well,
situation.
never mind. To that point, Kenny, sorry for interrupting, but to that point, look at the minutes he played in the Frozen Four, and to get the Boston University to the Frozen Four. 26 minutes and 24 minutes in the regionals, and then 24 minutes again in the national championship game, or sorry, in the semifinal to help them get to the national championship game. As the season went on, for Sasha in Boston, he was more and more relied upon by what was clearly a very talented Boston University team.
Yeah, it's impressive to see, and like I said, Jay Pandolfo is an excellent hockey mind here, and it's almost like you're treating it like a pro program. Like this is a player development factory, fellas, right? So. Again, we're not spending a ton of time watching their games, but what we know is when you're looking at where guys are coming from, a lot of guys and high-end guys are coming out of that program. And, the most important thing that Kevin Cheveldayoff said in his Zoom availability, Sasha played his best hockey at the most critical times. And you know what that means? That means you're a clutch player. And I understand that some people don't love that terminology, but I love when players play their best hockey when it matters. I don't want an A-Rod grand slam when your team is down 10-2. Who cares about that? I don't care about garbage time minutes. I care about guys who are on the ice when it matters and perform when it matters. So the other beauty, Dave, is that, for the Jets and for Team Sweden, the fact that he may be playing, at the World Junior with Alphonse Frey, I think that's, I know who's really thrilled about that is Mark Hillier, because this is 2-for-1 shopping when you go to the next World Junior and you're maybe looking at the next draft pick. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for those guys. World Junior Showcase, I think, is in Minnesota. My colleague Mike McIntyre mentioned. So it's a cool time to be a Swedish defenseman. And, when you couple that with the fact that the Jets' top defense prospect, Elias Salomonson, also has that passport, I don't think it's an accident. I know for years the Jets have, both Mark Hillier and Kevin Cheveldayoff have said they don't draft by passport, and I believe that to be true. But I also believe that recent events have reminded the Jets that actually drafting by passport on occasion when the player is capable is a very good idea when you see what happened with Rutger McGroarty and that situation. And while it still turned into Braden Yager, who is the Jets' top forward prospect, drafting skilled Swedes and some that play with edge like Salomonson is a very smart way of doing business. And again, I'm curious to see what we see with these next 3 picks on day 2. I mean, probably going to see some size. You're going to see some skill. And, like last year, Kevin He was the story of day 2. Right. He was already the story of day 2 because of his own heritage and the great story that is. But then to see the player that Kevin He became in that year in the Ontario Hockey League where he was a dominant force, it's cool to see what's happened. So it kind of makes you really interested in seeing what's going to happen on day 2, even though there is a limited number of picks available to the Jets unless they add picks today.
Well, so let's talk about that adding picks, because you say it's silly season, and I agree with you. And there's a new account on X that has been sort of accumulating all of the insiders and all their different radio appearances. And if you believe that account, because and credit to that account for doing so.
That account is at IC Drew.
Yeah, no, it's not IC Drew. It's not me, but everybody's getting traded. The same player's getting traded to 17 different markets. If you believe what all the different insiders are saying. To that point, though, Kenny, do you think you foresee the Jets maybe doing something to gain extra picks? That maybe there's a move to be made by the Winnipeg Jets. And in past they have traded down, to get an extra, 5th or an extra 6th. Or do you think there could be something even more significant that might come to play over the next? I guess the draft starts at 11. In a couple hours. Do you think there might be something more that gives the Jets more picks today?
Yeah, it could for sure, but I don't think it's going to be. Maybe there's a guy they have on their list that they got to get into the second round for. But the problem, Drew, is that as a win now team, their draft capital is already a little bit depleted already. Right. No second next year, no second in 27 already. So to get into the second round, what are you giving? Because you don't really want to give a roster player because you're actually trying to make that roster better already. So if the Jets are involved in a deal, I think it'd be more likely they're involved in a deal for a player that helps them now. And, that's why one of the reasons I thought that they might have actually been more open to moving that 28th overall pick to begin with yesterday, maybe to a team like Pittsburgh or something else. But I can see it happening, but I don't know that it's a big jump in early into the second round.
No,
again,
I was thinking more somebody, the name that comes to my mind, and I don't know, I don't have, any reason to say this, but I said this a few weeks ago on the show. And then I saw our friend Andy Strickland also say something along those lines.
Kenny, I'm very excited, by the way, for Drew to be quoted on that same Twitter account in a few hours saying, Drew Mandel of Illegal Curve says.
Nobody listens to what I say except for the good people listening to the show right now.
I know where you're going here, and I'm not certain.
Okay, so I'm going to Luke Schenn is where I'm going. That was the name that I was going to mention. I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I saw Andy Strickland mention it as well. Do you think he's firmly in the Winnipeg Jets next season?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and then again, Andy is a great reporter, and Andy covers the brother of Braden Schenn, so I don't think he's just going out and popping off and saying this without merit. But my own personal conversations with Luke Schenn, and I don't mean personal in terms of he's told me what his plan is, but I didn't get the indication that it wasn't a good fit for him here. Okay. And while a lot of us maybe raised our eyebrow when he was sat down and we thought he was a healthy scratch, and then later found out he was playing with 2 broken ribs, that to me was more of an explanation of why he left the lineup than, though again, I understand some folks didn't particularly enjoy the performance as much as they thought they might. To me, the reason the Jets got Luke Schenn is still valid for them. They needed someone who can do some of the dirty work on the back end, clean up the front of the net, kill penalties, be a physical force. And, what we saw from Luke Schenn, what was his best game of the season? Well, that's easy to identify for me. His best game of the season was Game 7 against the St. Louis Blues when he was a physical force in a game that the Jets needed Luke Schenn because they only had 5 defensemen. And he played his best hockey. So I understand that, it didn't go as smoothly. I also understand that this is a guy that has 3 kids that stayed behind. My understanding from, like I said, talking with Luke casually in the room, if Luke Schenn is with the Jets, and I expect he will be, his family will be living with him here, and the issues that were challenging for him will be alleviated because his family will be here with him, and his kids will be playing minor hockey in the Winnipeg minor hockey system, not in a state as that's a 2-hour flight away, and you have to get on a plane back and forth on several occasions because you haven't seen your kids in a week. So I'm not saying he can't be moved, because again, all of us know the Jets love Elias Salomonson. And right now on the depth chart, a player will have to be moved for Elias Salomonson to be in the NHL in October unless there's an injury. Right. So Luke Schenn has value, Drew, is how I would put it. But I think the Jets value what he brings. And just because they brought another Stanley Cup winner, this one a 3-time Stanley Cup winner instead of a 2-time, I think the Jets see themselves as a better team with a better chance of winning a cup if they have Luke Schenn and Jonathan Toews in their lineup. Because let's be honest, fellas, there isn't another defenseman that plays with that edge that Luke Schenn does when Luke Schenn is at his best in the organization. So I don't see the Jets being in a hurry. Now, if Luke Schenn's camp has said to the Jets, quietly that they would like a move, then sure, that's something that could happen here. But it doesn't have to necessarily necessitate in adding draft capital, though. Again, obviously, I know why you're thinking that way, Drew, and it makes some sense. But to me, I will be more surprised if he is moved than if he is back with the Jets. That's where I'm coming at it from. But having said that, we know I do expect someone on the Jets blue line to be moved, whether it's today or sometime or in and around July 1st, because there are too many capable defensemen and not enough chairs for those capable defensemen. And never mind the fact that Hayden Fleury would like to return to the Winnipeg Jets and be part of those defensemen. So we know Schenn is different because he's the right side versus left, and Colin Miller's on the right, and Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola are on the left. But I do think I think it's much more likely that Ville Heinola would be moved than Luke Schenn will be moved, even though, yes, there's again, there'd be a lineup for Schenn given those intangible qualities that he brings to the table. But again, fellas, as soon as Neil Pionk signed his deal, to me, that I wouldn't say sealed the fate of Ville Heinola, but to me, that made it much more likely that Heinola will be the guy moving on. And again, for Heinola, you hope that he's healthy first and foremost, but I don't see a clear pathway for him being in the Jets' top 6 at this moment, right? I mean, do any of you?
No,
not on that. No, not. I mean, not clearly. No, certainly not. It seems like he's definitely continued to fall more out of favor than rather get into better graces with the organization in terms of his future.
Yeah, bang on. And then that's why I say I think it's more likely he's moving on than Luke Schenn for me anyway. And good for him if that's the case, because you know where Ville Heinola needs to go? He needs to go to a team that is not not trying to win the Stanley Cup this year. He needs to go somewhere where he gets reps. He needs to go to a place like San Jose or somewhere where he can play, where there isn't as much pressure that, if you make a mistake, you're immediately being, having your minutes reduced. He needs to play minutes because of all the lost time, because of the ankle injuries over the last 2 years. He's missed out on so many reps that would have allowed him to at least show you if he's ready to be a full-time NHLer or not. And instead, we still have some questions, even though the skill set in the package says NHL player, but not on a team that's trying to win a Stanley Cup right now.
Kenny, you mentioned free agency earlier, and it's actually crazy to think that it's only 3 days away. I'll let you. It's we're kind of at the midway point of the buffet, so hydrate yourself, Kenny. And I was at a friend from out of town was here, and we had a little pool party for him.
Everyone can picture Ezzy without a shirt on now.
No, that's not something we.
I like swimming. I like pools.
Yeah,
you weren't invited.
It's okay, Kenny. I had my water wings on, but a couple people were asking me about Brock Besser. People were asking me about Andrew Mangiapane. Obviously, Nikolaj Ehlers. There's a chance that he signs with the Jets, but it's been reported by Elliot Friedman and others that it looks like he's going to test free agency. As far as those players, Besser and Mangiapane, I know Minnesota and other teams are after Besser as well. Besser's from Minnesota, but how realistic is it to expect one of those two players to be a Jet in the next few days?
Yeah, I mean, doing a lot of research on those fronts, Ezzy, and it's rumor mill season, so you're like, well, yeah, every player is going to be attached to someone if they're a capable player. And when looking under the hood, I mean, for me, because the Canucks are in the Pacific, we don't see them as often, right? So my initial thought about Besser was that he was more of a one-way player, but in talking with Ian McIntyre at Sportsnet and some other folks around the league, Besser's actually, under Rick Tocchet, improved his defensive game to the point where he was on the ice protecting leads last year and getting himself some empty net goal time. And people can feel however they want about empty net goals. The most important part about empty net goals is that your coach trusts you to be on the ice in that situation. So, I mean, Besser, if we're looking at a potential Besser for Ehlers swap out for a team that's trying to get faster, initially I was a little bit lukewarm on the idea because to me, Besser is a similar player to Tyler Toffoli without the Stanley Cup ring. But in doing a little bit of additional digging, Besser is a guy who has improved his defensive game. His off season last year was 25 goals. So Nikolaj Ehlers' highest goal total was 29 goals. And they are not anywhere near the same player. Brock is not nearly as dynamic. He is not a one-man zone entry, and he is not a one-for-one swap in terms of what you're getting and what the potential for you are getting. But Besser is a snipe show, guys. 6-time 20-goal scorer, 1 year removed from a 40 burger and 70-plus points, and he's going to be highly motivated because guess what? He wasn't thrilled about how things ended last year in Vancouver. He's had a lot of personal turmoil. We talked a lot about this subject in the last few years based on, players, high-end players who lost their father to very difficult circumstances. Brock Besser is in that camp. He's also an incredibly high-character person. Great person, played at UND. So if you've lived in Grand Forks, you've definitely, and again, we all love Grand Forks. We love going to the Ralph.
Yeah.
If you've lived there, It's not he played in Vancouver, he's not going to consider Winnipeg. And
Sorry, Kenny, did you say Jimmy John's? Is that what you said?
I did not, but I have eaten at that. I have had a sandwich or two from that location near the Ralph, and it's fantastic. Yes, but and I think that Brock is open to Winnipeg. That would be the other thing that has been revealed is the wrong word, but most people were like, oh, well, Besser's not going to think about Winnipeg. Brock Besser will consider Winnipeg. Now, having said all that, there are other teams. You mentioned a couple of them. LA is very interested. They need goal scoring. Besser will have plenty of suitors, but don't underestimate Winnipeg when it comes to Brock Besser is what I'm saying here. I think there would be a genuine interest on both sides. Brock is a guy, and a lot of those insiders are saying Brock may be considering a shorter term deal, knowing that the influx of money coming into the pool of the salary cap is what it is. I'm not saying it's going to be a lower AAV number. And this will be something too, where, Ehlers he's going to hit a grand slam, fellas. This is going to be north of 8.5, and probably it could go into the 9s once Marner is off the board. And yes, I bet that your chat room is saying, oh my God, how is that going to happen? If you don't believe me today, wait a few days, because it's going to happen. Yeah. He's probably going to be north of 9. It's going to be north of 8.5. That is a absolute guarantee. And once Marner is off the board, and, count me among those who think he is in the Vegas pool here. Again, not saying it's a done deal, but I do think Vegas is going to make a very firm offer on Mitch Marner. And I think that Marner would love to go to Vegas because it's the opposite of Toronto in terms of how the team is covered and in terms of winning right now to this point. So that means, and in Bennett saying for 8 years, 8 times 8, oh, guess what? Yeah, and Marchand, yeah, sure. Marchand may be staying there also. Once that happens, guys, you've looked at the list. Nikolaj Ehlers was close to the top of the list to begin with. Right. When you're looking at Tavares off the board, Bennett off the board, Marner Marner likely being in a certain, area of the continent, it's going to be a big number. So I still think that the Carolina Hurricanes are the best option for Ehlers. But I do think the Jets are going to be among the teams that are in on Brock Besser. And again, we don't know what the crystal ball looks like, but if that comes to fruition, people can debate all they want about where Toews is going to fit in. But right now, the depth chart looks to me like Perfetti, Toews, Besser. It's a pretty good second line, fellas. Yeah,
good replacement. If you're losing Ehlers, it's a pretty decent replacement.
Right, and you're not going to find someone as dynamic as Ehlers on the open market. But so if you can find the next Ehlers somehow in a trade, fill your boots, and I'll be impressed.
What's the hardest thing to do in the NHL? It's score goals.
Exactly, and I've used the example of the Jets need to find the next Carter Verhaeghe if they don't find Brock Besser, and guess what? Those guys that go from fourth liners on championship teams to 40 goal scorers, they're not in abundance right now. So I think Besser would be more than, he'd be a capable, he's not just a seat filler. This is a guy who's been a productive player his entire career, a motivated player, and someone who would fit in with the culture and the age group of a win now program. And let's not forget, the Canucks took the Oilers to 7 games the previous year, and Besser was a big part of that team. Point-a-game player in the playoffs that year, 12 points, 12 games. So now you also can't ignore the fact that after JT Miller left last year, his production did dip. So that's the other part of the coin, but I don't think that necessarily means that Brock Besser is on the decline. I don't think that at all. He's 28 years old, and here's a guy that knows how to produce a lot of tucks, guys. And like you said, that is the toughest thing for a team to do. And for everyone's, commentary, we know that Connor Hellebuyck needs to be a little bit better in the playoffs, but he also had 2 shutouts in the second round. So the thing the Jets didn't do enough of in the playoffs was score goals. So yes, no, they did not defend as well as they did in the regular season the last 2 years, but they also didn't score enough. So Besser makes sense on that front as well.
Well, I don't think we've heard from Dave in about 25 minutes, so I think we should go to him now. Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press is our guest.
And that's my fault. Yes, I know. Sorry, David.
That's okay, Kenny. I could wait. I was formulating my question, working on it, changing it, flipping it, asking it, adding some more depth to it. But
And then you went and got the crab cakes for the buffet. I know, and I appreciate that. I can see them now.
that's okay. We've got you in the final stretch drive. You haven't hit dessert just yet, Kenny, but we'll get you there. No, but you mentioned Toews, and I don't have a purport to have a crystal ball either, but I can make a Ginsburg guarantee that the Jets will be signing Jonathan Toews on July 1st. That one I can for sure say. And one of the things I was thinking about with Toews, because you talk about Stanley Cup pedigree and a guy who can play a role. We don't know what he's going to be like. We got some more insight from Kevin Cheveldayoff this week saying that they were heard, because his agent had said he didn't do any skates for anybody when he was on with Sportsnet last week. And then Kevin told us during the media availability before the draft that Toews was skating at the University of Arizona, and they had guys who it was connected to him that saw him, and that they knew that, because it was interesting. There was the question out there as to whether it was just kind of blind faith that they were taking a player who hadn't been on the ice or hadn't been played in the NHL in 2 years. But I was listening to Sheet and Jeff Merrick and Pierre McGuire were talking, and Pierre brought up an interesting parallel, talking about Brian Trottier, and talked about a guy who, was so important to that Penguins team to get them, after winning the 4 Stanley Cups with the Islanders, obviously in the early 80s, helping the Penguins to their Stanley Cups in the early 90s. But I just thought it was an interesting parallel that Pierre brought up, and obviously he knew because he was with the Penguins at the time. But I just thought it was interesting to hear his thoughts about Toews and what he can do and what that pedigree can do to a team that is trying to get over the hump. So we haven't really had a chance to talk to you other than, on the show, I should say, in this regard. So your kind of takeaway of the Toews deal.
Yeah, I love the parallel from Pierre. And again, as a Penguins fan growing up in that era of the Lemieux era, I think it's a great parallel. Because my earliest hockey memories are of watching the dynastic Islanders and watching Trottier, Goring, Bobby Nystrom, Clark Gillies. Yes, Mike Bossy and Potvin were the stars, but they don't win without Ken Morrow and guys like that, and Billy Smith in the pipes. So, but Trottier going to the Penguins, I think it's a great parallel. Again, there's no playbook for 2 years away from the game, but as someone who loves the game as much as Jonathan Toews, having the game taken away for 2 years only intensified his love for the sport. This is a guy who's never cheated the game in his entire life. He will put in the work. He will be an incredible leader for the Winnipeg Jets. His winning pedigree will help everyone from Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, even Captain Adam Lowry, to Braden Yager and Elias Solomonson, and everywhere in between. The work that he puts in, the dedication to the craft, all of those things are things that will help the Jets as they try to level up and, close the gap from 6 playoff wins and try to get all the way to 16 and get to the top of the mountain. This guy's won from every level. Ezzy, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only time Team West has won the U17 is when Jonathan Toews was starring for the Manitoba-Saskatchewan combination platter. Is that correct?
I believe you are right. I've only been with Hockey Manitoba for 6 years, so I'd have to go back into the archives and maybe ask Bernie Reichart, but I think you are correct. Yeah.
Bernie's probably listening, so he can get you the answer immediately here. But my point is that they'd never won it before Toews rolled through the program. And, for folks who don't know, that's a big deal because this is an event won by the powerhouse provinces normally. And although we've produced a lot of really good players, that's a tough event to win, for that Manitoba-Saskatchewan plate. And it just sort of set the table for Jonathan in a next decade that was filled with winning. So again, I understand why some folks are hesitant, and I'm not telling you not to be, but I am telling you not to be because Jonathan is not coming back to be, ham and egger, if you will. This is a guy who's one of the best players this province has ever produced, one of its most decorated athletes, along with current Hall of Fame inductee for 2025, Jennifer Botterill. Sorry to go sideways here, but shout out required after a great visit with her this week. But Toews is a guy who, even if he's not 2010 Jonathan Toews, and that would be asking a lot, he will still bring so much to the table. And I do think he can handle either second or third line minutes. We'll see what that ends up being. But because Adam Lowry can handle second line minutes, you don't need Jonathan Toews to be a 22-minute player. You need him to be a 16 to 20 minute player, depending on how he's feeling, how his body holds up, all of those things. But look recently to Gabe Landeskog, fellas. I had covered his last game before his comeback in the playoffs. That was the 2022 Stanley Cup final. He had a wild journey back that included multiple surgeries. Was it Lonzo? I think Lonzo, or maybe it was the other Ball brother, whoever it was. It had barely happened.
LaMelo?
It was LaMelo. You're right. Almost never happened and not a ton of success. This isn't like Jack Eichel where you have the ADR and then now every sudden everybody's having it. Right. Landeskog makes his way back. I was talking to someone in the offseason. Landeskog's journey actually might have been more difficult to Toews' journey in terms of the more surgeries required and all of those things. The issue is we don't have a playbook for coming back from combination of long COVID and the respiratory issues. So I get it, but Jonathan wouldn't be coming back just to say I got back to being an NHLer. He wants to be a high-end player. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. And when you look at his body of work and his skill set and what he will bring to the table, even in a lesser version than the peak version, he's the best face-off guy the Jets have. If you look at the numbers, he's won a Selke, so he's going to be one of the best defensive players. And he's a triple threat. You want him on the ice when the game is tied. You want him on the ice when you're protecting 1-goal lead, and you want him on the ice as a sixth attacker when you're trying to tie the game. So all of the things that he brings to the table, even with a 2-year break, there is so much value of what he's going to bring to the city, to the community. You guys have seen the posts and talked about him. This guy genuinely wants to be here. What have the Jets spent the last 3 years doing in terms of the culture cleanup? They want people who want to be in Manitoba. You know who wants to be in Manitoba? The guy who's got a lake named after him, a community center named after him, and has won the Order of Manitoba bestowed upon him in his 30s, fellas. So I understand some hesitancy, but for the folks saying that he can't play a second or third line role, that's full on wake up territory. Now, It's up to Jonathan to show them, no doubt about that. And I'm not saying it's an automatic. What I am saying is that you will be pleasantly surprised. This guy is not just some guy coming back to play. I used this term yesterday. He's not coming back to play in the adult safe league to say he got on the ice. This guy is a proven competitor, a proven winner, and he will be able to perform at an NHL level. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Guys, teams wanted him in March for their playoff push. Jonathan deemed at that time that he wasn't sure if he was ready, spent the next several months getting ready. Now he feels he's going to be ready for the grind. It's a grind, the 82 season. We'll see how many games he plays. We'll see how long it takes him to knock off some of the rust. But as I've mentioned countless times on numerous programs, the last time Jonathan Toews was healthy was 2020, essentially. Fully healthy, pre-COVID. You know what happened that year, fellas? I know you do, because you've heard me say it and you were watching. Jonathan Toews was the best player in the qualification round series with an Edmonton Oilers team that included Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. The best player in that series was Captain Sirius, and it wasn't particularly close. And that's not to say, yes, it's a long, winding road since that time, but if you can be the best player in a series that involves two of the best three players in the NHL, I'd say it's worth the limited risk. And for those people complaining about the salary, honestly, if the Jets allow him to hit all of those numbers, where is the $7 million center the Jets are signing on July 1st or trading for? If someone can show him to me, I'm open arms and my ears are open. They're not filled with Patrick Waugh's Stanley Cup rings. I'm happy for any of you to tell me where that player is. And if you have to trade for him, what do you have to trade to get that player? You're signing him for the monetary value. Yes, some of the incentives he should hit with ease if he's healthy. I get it. But if anyone who's a Jets fan doesn't think it would be worth it to pay a $7 million contract to this player in order for there to be a parade at Portage and Main, I'm guessing we're going to have a way different conversation around this time next year if all those bonuses get paid out. Let's put it that way.
Kenny, especially now that Portage and Main is open. I mean,
good point by you. Some people will be trying to get in front of the parade.
Although, Kenny, we do also remember that you were in Colorado because if I recall correctly, that was the famous Kenny walk and talk when you had the earbuds in and you were walking from one destination to the other.
To the arena on a Saturday morning, boys. That was a good memory. Yeah, absolutely awesome to cover that series between Tampa and Colorado. Fun series. And Gabe Landeskog was a very good player in that series, even though he was battling through all these knee issues. And now he's come back and been a very good player. And that Sean Reynolds, my podcast partner, has mentioned the story a lot. Jared, speaking with Bednar, you have faith in that player because you've seen what that player has done and you've seen the work he's put in to get back to being that player. And I'm here to tell you, Jonathan has been putting in that work. He's highly motivated and he wants to be an impact player. He just isn't coming back to say, hey, I made an extra $5 or $6 million and great for me to pad my bank account. This guy is driven by winning. But for those of you who don't know him, he hates losing more than he enjoys winning. And he has enjoyed a lot of winning. So I think that element will also help for a team that has been on the rise. And again, for all the people saying, oh, well, if Ehlers is gone, it's, sky is falling, Jets are doomed. This will be the 4th year of the implementation of we actually enjoy playing defense situation that was installed by Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel. And if you don't think that matters, you should also to do a recent check at history. And I know a lot of the folks have already read it, but I pointed this out in my article after Florida won the Cup. For all the people saying, oh, President's Trophy doesn't mean squat. Look at the last decade and change. There are 4 teams that have won the President's Trophy and won the Stanley Cup within 2 years. They are the Washington Capitals. They are the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are the Colorado Avalanche. They are the Florida Panthers. And although there are differences between all of those teams, the one constant was that for all 4 of those teams, defense was optional prior to learning how to win, having the disappointment after being the President's Trophy winner, and then committing to playing team defense. So I'm not saying the Jets are automatically going to add themselves to being the 5th team on that list. What I am saying is they have already taken steps to improving what is necessary to get to the top of the mountain. And, that's why you should know they're not going to go from 1st overall to 16th and barely hanging on and being a playoff team. They are committed. They know what it takes. They haven't shown what it takes when it matters most, but the incremental growth from 2 playoff wins in 2 years to 6 in 1 spring is something to build on that goes with that President's Trophy. And it's tough to level up without learning how to win in the regular season first. They've accomplished that step. Now the even more difficult step is upon them.
Well, after a trip to the buffet, that good, I know that I need a nap. So
I need a smoke. That's what I need.
Something like that. I think instead we have the audio of Ezzy snoring, and that'll be the wrap of this morning's segment here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Our good friend Ken Wiebe joining us this morning. The audio didn't come through as well as I'd hoped. Kenny, enjoy day 2 of the draft. Enjoy Dev Camp. We'll see you this week. Thanks for this. This has been a fantastic visit.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys having me. Enjoy the rest of the show. Enjoy the conversation with Sasha. And yes, see you next week. And all the best to everybody. Enjoy your long weekend.
Thank you. Do you want to plug the year-ender? I don't know if you've had an opportunity to do that.
You guys will be there. We are completely sold out, but we will have our annual Kenny and Rennie year-ender July 8th at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. I know a lot of your folks will be there because they're also our folks, which is the beauty of this platform that we have built and the community that everyone is building. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Should be a fantastic evening over there. And we look forward to seeing you guys there as well if you can make it.
We will be there.
Kenny, I'm excited to do some keg stands with Drew at TCB.
I look forward to it. And your kid's reaction was perfect there.
Yeah, Dad's doing another keg stand again. It's not even, they don't even bat an eye at it at this point in time. Kenny,
love it, boys. Have a great weekend.
This Saturday.
Cheers.
Bye. Kenny Wiebe, what a visit. You knew it was going to be a good one, and it certainly was. We have to take a break. We're way over on our non-existent clocks, but we'll come back with much more of this Saturday morning edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Don't go anywhere.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Commercial free for the first hour. That's how we did it on this Saturday morning. So much to discuss. Love getting back together with our buddy Ken Wiebe to discuss everything going on with regard to the NHL Draft, the Winnipeg Jets free agency coming up on Tuesday as well. So that'll be a big date to circle on the calendar. Typically isn't for the Winnipeg Jets, but we know the elements of we know the exciting aspects of what's ahead for the Winnipeg Jets. The Nikolaj Ehlers question, the possibility of the Jets maybe getting somebody in free agency of a significant name, as opposed to sort of the and I don't say this with disrespect, but the bargain basement shopping that the Jets are generally use on free agency day, not because they don't have the money to spend, or not because they don't want to spend the money, but because it takes two to tango, and they often don't get that dance partner on July 1st. Let's look ahead a little bit to July 1st. We don't, day 2 of the draft is coming up soon, and we'll have it covered in its entirety, but the Jets don't have that many picks, so it's still a while before the Jets are going to select anything for day 2. So about Tuesday, what are you looking for on Tuesday primarily, Dave Minuk? I mean, you're going to be there in with the assembled masses, in the basement of the downtown arena. You're just shaking your head that you're not.
I will not be. I will be at the Hockey for All Center covering day 1 of the prospect development camp. Right. But I will be you're not entirely factually inaccurate, Drew, because I will eventually, when we're done with our media responsibility with the prospects, making my way to Canada Life Center to cover the remainder of free agency.
I'm not completely wrong. You're just going to be in two places rather than just the one place.
Exactly.
So what are you looking for? What do you sort of have your eye on? Is it a built-in immediate Nikolaj Ehlers replacement, or is it a more typical July 1st for the Winnipeg Jets that you're sort of anticipating?
I mean, look, we know that Nikolaj Ehlers is going to, as he mentioned, test the market. That's what we heard from Elliot Friedman. That's he informed the team that is his intention. Now, Friedman also qualified his comment by saying he wasn't ruling out Manitoba, which I thought was remarkable. I'm like, man, the Moose are an option. I mean, that is one hell of a season next year to cover the Moose, but so it's not like Winnipeg isn't still an option. I mean, look, Ehlers, it just seems like everybody has for so long now has said Carolina. So, and it doesn't mean that, a team like LA couldn't come out of left field and try and get Ehlers or some other team that we're not expecting.
I've heard Washington. I've heard Columbus.
We heard Washington, as well, mentioned on the 32 Thoughts podcast. So, but also Winnipeg. I mean, there is that fit, and maybe if the money works. I mean, look, we've heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff for the last, more in the last week than we had in the last 6 months. And, we'll probably hear from him again, maybe, during the development camp, we know we will. So, and during free agency. So at the end of free agency,
and you hear from him at the end of the day today as well, at the end of the draft.
No, because we heard from him yesterday. So we're here today. We're going to hear from Mark Hiller, the head of scouting, but we'll hear from Cheveldayoff on Tuesday, probably around 3 or 4. And then, of course, we'll hear, unless something big happens, and then maybe we hear from him earlier. And then, maybe we'll hear from him once more during development camp. Not sure. But, when you ask me what are the Jets looking to do, I mean, I really don't know, Drew. I don't know, everything I've read, everything I've posted has been about the Jets, that secondary option. I mean, Brock Boeser is a flawed option because he's not Nikolaj Ehlers. He can score, which is, of course, what you need. That's not going to be a very fast second line between Perfetti, Toews, and Boeser, potentially. Could be, for a team that's trying to play fast, that's not going to be one. One of the things I've read, we know about Boeser is he's not exactly a defensive juggernaut. So, I mean, that isn't maybe necessarily plays within that framework. But what did Kenny say? The one thing the Jets needed to do in the playoffs that they didn't do against Dallas was score goals. So what's one of the things we know that Brock Boeser can do? He can score. So if you're able to get a guy like Boeser who says, okay, you know what? It's, Kenny said, played at UND, grew up in Minnesota, willing, sees Winnipeg as an option. We don't know what the term's going to be. We don't know, maybe he's willing. I mean, obviously we know that Vancouver's trying to move him last year. They couldn't find any takers. Maybe you don't have to go as long a term with him. Maybe you can get away with a 5-year deal or something of that nature. And maybe Boeser is, again, I understand that folks aren't going to like the deal potentially as soon as year 3, year 4, and year 5. But ultimately, I've said this with the Blake Wheeler deal, when the Jets signed him to a 5-year deal, and he put up back-to-back 90-point seasons. But the fact of the matter is, if you win the Stanley Cup, you love that deal. So if you can get Boeser to produce and kind of find a fountain of youth here a little bit with the Winnipeg Jets, even though we're only 2 seasons removed from him scoring 40, I mean, that to me is a pretty good consolation prize if you can't re-sign Nikolaj Ehlers.
Boeser's only 28 years old, Dave. So, I'm not sure why people would be worried about the 4th or 5th year of a contract. To me, he'd be fine at a 5-year contract. If the Jets can get Brock Boeser, that would be a major coup, period. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not as fast as Nikolaj Ehlers. This is the thing, guys. Who is as fast as Nikolaj Ehlers? Nobody, right? So, I understand, Dave, he's not going to win a sulky trophy, but I think he's better defensively than maybe he's being given credit for. So I'm high on Brock Boeser. I think he'd be fantastic, but the problem, and I don't want to get Jets fans' hopes up too high because I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are after him, right? We talked about it with Kenny, right? He's only a couple years removed from a 40-goal season, right? 25 goals and 50 points on a bad Canucks team is pretty good, right? So this is a guy who he's a bona fide second-line player, right, Dave? So I'm not looking at Boeser or Andrew Mangiapane or anybody else as a replacement for Ehlers 1-for-1. I'm looking at him at these players as you need bona fide players on your second line that can produce. That's what the Jets need, right? And as it stands now, right, you could pencil in, not in pen, you could put Johnny Toews and Cole Perfetti on that second line. Certainly Perfetti you're putting in pen,
right? But
Toews you're putting in pencil. And who's going to be the other winger on the second line, right? Like people are saying, well, maybe Alex Iafallo. Like, all due respect to Alex Iafallo, I think we all agree he's better suited in a bottom six role, right? Like if he needs to fill in on the top line or fill in on the second line, great, but he's limited offensively, right? When you're talking about Mangiapane, when you're talking about Besser, you're talking about guys that have put up 35 and 40 goal seasons respectively, right? So if the Jets can acquire either of these players, I think go ahead and do it. And so when you ask us, Drew, what we think the Jets' plan is, I think it's pretty clear, right? Like you're trying to fill in that second line.
Well,
and if it's not via free agency, the question then becomes, well, what are you giving up to acquire that via trade? Because if you're trying to bring in a second line player via trade, you've already used your first round pick. Well, then teams are probably asking about your top prospects. Who's their top prospect? Probably Braden Yager. Obviously, Elias Salamonson is a top prospect. I don't think, based on what the Jets have in the system right now, they're even considering moving Salamonson, Dave. But yeah, I mean, I think the plan has to be for the Jets right now, try to get a second line winger on the free agent market. It's just, that's going to be tough because we know the Jets are not a top destination for free agents. They just aren't.
Let me stop you there for a second and ask you this question, because I agree, Winnipeg is not a top destination for free agency. But, what we've seen is that we've seen players will go to what I'll describe as, I'll use the term non-traditional, and I don't mean that in the sense of, doesn't have a hockey culture, but not typically, destinations for free agency, when those teams have shown a propensity for winning, having a winning culture, having a winning pedigree, having a success on the ice. I mean, Edmonton, with all due respect, is not that much different than Winnipeg as a city, as a climate, as a hotspot for nightlife and entertainment. But what does Edmonton have? It has McDavid. It has Draisaitl. In the last number of years, it's had a winning pedigree. And as a result, players are willing to go there. They're happy to consider it. Has the lens regarding the Winnipeg Jets maybe changed at all because of the success, albeit mostly regular season, but that the success that the Jets have had over the last couple of seasons? Do you think that maybe Winnipeg is looked upon a little more favorably because of that success?
Yes, I think so. I'll let Dave get in here, but I think the winning, I mean, we've always talked about the Detroit Red Wings, right, Dave? Like, Detroit isn't exactly considered, a top tourist destination in the U.S., and that's putting it lightly, right? Like, Detroit's a fine city. I've never been there. I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about
Vegas, it's not Nashville, it's not
it's not Los Angeles, it's not Miami, it's not Denver, right? Like
nobody was circling Detroit back when they had the success that they had when they were the Detroit Red Wings.
Exactly.
But they could get who they wanted to because players were attracted to the winning nature of the organization.
Exactly. So when you have players like Steve Yzerman and Nicholas Lidstrom and Brendan Shanahan, Sergei Fedorov, we all know those great players that the Wings had back in the day. Yeah, then players want to go there because they were winning Stanley Cups, right? So I think that the President's Trophy season, the last couple of seasons, really, even though the Jets haven't had the playoff success, I think that that has changed the narrative a little bit. And look, Johnny Toews, yes, he's from Winnipeg, but he decided to sign with the Jets. That's a huge free agent signing for them. And so hopefully that is going to change the narrative. And, look, Brock Besser's from Minnesota, right? Like, so it's not like Besser's from California. Like Minnesota's pretty close to Manitoba, right? So I'm intrigued by that. I just don't want to get Jets fans' hopes up too high because I think the Minnesota Wild covet him as well, right?
No question. He's in demand. I mean, right. AFP Analytics, this is courtesy of our friends at Daily Faceoff, AFP Analytics say that Besser is likely to get 6 years and $8.5 million per season. To that idea, Ehlers 6 years, $8.1 million is what AFP Analytics projects for Ehlers. If you had to choose, let's say the Jets have $9 million, and both Ehlers and Besser want it, but the Jets only are willing to accept, or are only willing to offer it to one of them. Who do you think the Jets should get that money, Dave? Is it Ehlers? No doubt about it. Or can an argument be made that the Jets have reached their ceiling with Nikolaj Ehlers, and maybe it's time to change things up a little bit in that regard?
No chance.
Okay.
No chance. Sorry, with all due respect to Brock Besser, the 2015 first rounder, but I think you're sticking with your 2014 first rounder, Ezzy, because I mean, look, Nikolaj Ehlers has done this without a center. Let's not. I mean, I often look and I say, okay, well, he's maxed out in whatever his points are, and I know his points, adjusted points are much different than his actual points when you look at what he's been able to produce. But he's been able to produce that without a consistent center. I mean, that's pretty impressive what he's been able to do on his own. And I think what we saw in the playoffs was a guy who was adjusting to playoff hockey. So no, I think if you have the money and you have a willing Nikolaj Ehlers, you're signing him, and you're hoping that eventually, whether it's with Adam Lowry, maybe the Jets kind of like finally figure it out and be like, wow, Mark Scheifele and Nikolaj Ehlers, their numbers look pretty good when they're actually playing together. Maybe that one would be the combination that works. We remember what happened when Rick Bowness had that combo flying for when Kyle Connor got hurt, and we're like, oh, well, it's muscle memory. He'll go back to that line when he needs them. Well, he didn't. But the point was that we saw how good they were in a pretty decent sample size. And again, for me, it's you're keeping Ehlers all day of the week, because look how good your power play was with Nikolaj Ehlers. You're the best power play in the NHL. So, no, you're keeping Nikolaj Ehlers if you can. But I just think that Brock Besser is a decent option for, again, the Jets' window to win right now is right now. You've got Connor Hellebuck. You've got Mark Scheifele. You've got all of these guys kind of in their prime or just past it or just getting to it. This is when you need to win with that group. And so it's not about, okay, well, we lost Nikolaj Ehlers, and we'll try and see if Brad Lambert or Nikita Chibrikov, don't get me wrong, I cover them more than anybody. I know what these guys are potentially capable of, but they're a lot younger, right? These are guys who were drafted in 2021 and 2022. So you're not expecting the same thing from guys that were drafted, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, who have all these years in the National Hockey League. So from my perspective, a Jets team that has that window with Connor Hellebuck, with Mark Scheifele, if you don't get Ehlers, then you got to get someone. And if that someone is Brock Besser, well, he is not Nikolaj Ehlers. He's still a pretty good player.
A couple of years ago, he had 16 goals on the power play too, Dave. So I just wanted to mention that I'm taking Ehlers all day long in front of Besser. I think Besser's a great player. I think it's an interesting question, to be honest with you, because they're not similar players. They're stylistically very different players. I'm taking Ehlers, but just wanted to mention that Besser, during his 40-goal season, 16 of those were on the power play. So I'm just saying Besser is a guy that can fit in on the Jets' first power play, I believe. The point here is, guys, if the Jets lose Ehlers for nothing, this is the first significant free agent that they will lose for nothing. Significant meaning a top 5 forward, a top 5 player on the team. This has never happened before where they've lost.
That they drafted, that they developed, that they didn't, that they just let walk to free agency. You're
exactly
right.
Like,
everyone else has been traded before that, things of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. So you're losing a guy for nothing. You have to replace him. And I'm with Dave. I think Brad Lambert has a high upside, but he's only 20, 21 years old. I don't think you can go into next year. This is just my personal opinion. I don't think you can go in next year and be like, yeah, Brad Lambert's going to fill in for Nikolaj Ehlers, and we're hoping for a 50 or 60-point season out of him. Because I think there's going to be growing pains, just like who recently had growing pains in the NHL? Cole Perfetti, who's a couple years older than Brad Lambert. So I'm with Dave. I think, Lambert most likely plays with the Moose next year, maybe splits his time between the Moose and the Jets. I think Nikita Chibrikov is much more NHL ready to fill in on the third line or the fourth line, whether that's a replacement for Mason Appleton or that's a replacement for someone else on the fourth line. So I think at the end of the day, boys, the Jets have to be bringing in, like, there's also the second line center question, right? So there's replacing Ehlers if he doesn't come back, and it sounds like he's not coming back, even though, can we talk about for a second, there was a little bit of conflicting reports coming from the insiders, because Darren Dreger reported saying that Ehlers, maybe the door hasn't closed.
Well, I don't think the door, they've been consistent in saying that he's going to go July 1st. to the market to see what it actually can offer him, as if they already aren't having those conversations. It's amazing, there's no tampering, there's no legal tampering period, yet everybody signs 8 seconds after July 1st.
Oh, it opens at 11 o'clock, and 11:01, we've got our first major signing to announce.
But Dave, you know what I'm saying, though? Dregs kind of threw that in there, and Dregs doesn't throw stuff in there lightly. He did say that the door's not closed yet, did he not?
Yeah, I don't think the door necessarily is closed, but in my estimation, if he ends up re-signing with the Winnipeg Jets, it'll be a bit of a stunner. I mean, Dave, you were there in the room.
I agree with that, Drew.
You were there in the room this week when you heard from Kevin Shoveldayoff when he talked about it, and he said, we're going to talk to Nikolaj's representatiants until we can't talk to them anymore, i.e. until he's signed with another team.
He can keep talking to him, but he just can't, they just won't. They'll be like, Kevin, why are you calling? He already signed a 7-year deal.
Yeah, why are you calling? Exactly. We're not going for dinner right now. But, I mean, so you were there. You heard the tenor of the conversation. I'd be stunned at this point if he ends up back as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, what's your assessment to that effect?
I don't disagree. Again, like I said, I was very much on board with the fact that I thought he was walking. It modified slightly when I heard the conversation 5-6 weeks ago when the season ended from Kevin Shoveldayoff, that they had the 2-hour meeting with the reps, and on the Monday, right after they had been eliminated by Dallas. So you thought, okay, well, maybe there's something there. And then, of course, it had gone quiet for weeks, other than, occasional drib and drab about Ehlers and, teams that are interested, and every team is interested and no teams are interested. And like you said, there's lots of information that's coming out. But yeah, I mean, I'm still firmly in the camp that I'd be surprised. But at the end of the day, I like I said, it's easy to have a vision of what your usage is going to be on another team. And, oh, sure, you're going to sign and you're going to get this many minutes and we're going to guarantee you this. But I mean, again, if you're going to a top team, you've got to think that they probably already have, a fairly established top line, because again, if you're just chasing the money, fine, go to San Jose, go to Anaheim, get whatever you want, be the top line guy, produce 80, 90 points. Fantastic. No chance.
Hold on, are you talking about Jonathan Toews right now?
I wasn't, but no, but my point is that that's funny. Sorry. I just kind of clued in on that one. But the fact of the matter is that if you're Nikolaj Ehlers and you want to win a championship, which again, everything we've ever heard from him is a guy who wants to win, right? Like he literally left. Now, some would say he left Winnipeg so he didn't have to do his exit interviews with us, but he literally left Winnipeg to get on that plane to go and play for Denmark because he wanted to help his team at the World Championship. So I think you've got a player who is determined to win a Stanley Cup, would love to do it with this group. And, like I said, I don't see Winnipeg as a favorite to land Nikolaj Ehlers, but I mean, maybe I'll put it at 30%, 35% chance still. Cause I think there is the whole idea of like, this team, the role, the city, there's so much and you've still got that contention window of, let's say, 3 to 4 years, right, Ezzy? And so that to me is it gives you the money and everything else like that. So you've got the money, you've got the opportunity to win. Obviously it's not the same as from a climate perspective as going to Raleigh, but or Raleigh, Drew, as you might say it down south.
That's how they say it too.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that's why I said you're Southern by extension. So
thank you.
That's why I was giving you that props. But the fact of the matter is that
Drew is a Southern belle.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's reasons why he might want to walk, and there's reasons why he might want to stay. Ultimately, he's kept it pretty quiet, and there's the other possibility, and I mentioned this when we were talking on the other day on the site. You do wonder if the Jets. I mean, I thought they would have done it already, but the sign and trade possibility, the trade regardless of sign and trade, like there are options to try and recoup some. You're talking about recouping assets, Drew, because they do only have the 4 picks today.
Right.
So you do wonder if they are going to try something in that regard. And ultimately we'll see what ends up happening. And with Nikolaj Ehlers, I'm still leaning towards not signing in Winnipeg, but I wouldn't be shocked if he does.
More Jets talk to come this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We remind everyone as well, in about 30 minutes' time, Sasha Bumidian is set to join us here on the program as well. Drew,
I think we have to also confirm with Sasha how to pronounce his last name, because I've been saying Bumidian.
Yeah,
some people say Bumidian.
Bumidian, no. That occurred last night already.
Kelly Moore, as he asked him, and it's Bumidian. Sorry.
Bumidian.
Bumidian. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sasha Bumidian.
It's a long name. Those long names are tough sometimes.
Yeah,
But if you're concerned about it, he literally did it for us on the Zoom chat.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see that.
No, that's okay.
You're giving me a hard time here. I mean, I'm a journalism guy. I take pride in my ability to pronounce names. Like B-O-U could be Bo, it could be Boo.
Well, so Kelly asked him for that clarity. He provided it. So not when we're on live.
Just think of the ghost, right? Yeah. Think of like Casper the Ghost, Bumidian.
Well, I can say one thing's for certain, that us three boobs will be interviewing Sasha Bumidian in about 30 minutes' time. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you Saturday morning. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show continues.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Dave Minuk, Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg. I almost confused all of our names there, which is really a depressing sign, but that's okay. We are continuing on this Saturday morning, the NHL Draft Day 2, set to get underway. I don't even know when it gets underway. In a couple minutes' time, I think, right? Is it 11 a.m. Central Time is when it starts? Sasha Bumidian will be joining us then. What are you doing, Dave? I can see you're holding something. What was that? I don't even know if your mic is on. I can't hear you. I don't know what's happening right now. So I can't hear you at all, Dave. So I'll let you figure that out. And
Dave's not muted either, Drew, because we can see if Dave's muted behind the scenes here. And he's not muted. So I'm not. It looked like Dave had something cooking on ChatGPT.
I don't know. He had a smile on his face. I've seen that grin before. His mind was working a mile a minute, but I still don't know that we can hear him anyways. But in any event, welcome back to the program. Big thanks to all of the sponsors of our show. They make this show. Check if your mic is muted on the actual mic itself there, Dave. I can see you're struggling a little bit to try and figure out what's going on. But we want to say a big thanks to our sponsors, our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsor, of course. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, if you're looking for something to do. Tonight, Rumors has 2 shows. Check it out, rumorscomedyclub.com. Holt Dental for your teeth, Boston Pizza for your nourishment, City Place for the food court and all the great businesses that are run out of our good friends at City Place, and of course our friends at Seagram's for all of your long weekend Canada Day responsible consumption needs. We look forward to having everybody back next year as a sponsor and thank them for all their success and all their support this year. As July 1st, we talked about sort of the big end, the top end, the Nikolaj Ehlers replacement. What else do you think the Jets are looking for come Tuesday? We know that it's usually depth guys. It's usually oftentimes guys who are maybe getting a two-way deal. We've heard Andrew Mangiapane's name out there. He would certainly be a second, third, probably in there guy for the Winnipeg Jets. Who knows if that's going to come to fruition at all. He had a bit of a down year in Washington last year, but has had some recent success in years before that, both with the Capitals and with the Calgary Flames. What do you think what do you expect to see from the Jets on Tuesday and the start of free agency?
You mentioned the depth players, Drew, and, we focused a lot on the second line, right? Like Brock Besser would be a replacement, not apples for Nikolaj Ehlers, but he'd be a replacement on the second line center. But when you're talking about, the third and fourth lines, there's going to be a little bit of turnover, right? Like a guy like Nikita Chibrikov is knocking on the door, but you're talking about, is Brandon Tanev.
Is he knocking on the door as much as we think he is? Is he NHL ready for next season? Or the Jets really love to take time letting their prospects cook, letting them marinate, coming off of a serious injury last year that cost him a big chunk of games. Is it too much to assume that he's going to be an NHL regular at the outset of next season?
No, and look, Drew, I'm not Jimmy Roy, and I'm not Mike Keane, and I'm definitely not Dave Minuk. All of these guys, these are like when you're talking about Roy and Keane. Obviously, I'm joking about Dave, but their player development. They know which players are ready to take the next step. Based on what I've seen, I absolutely think Chibrikov. And speaking of Dave M, he's going to come in here. Hopefully, we can hear him this time.
Well, you probably can, but it's now I'm off my main mic because I don't know what just happened. Something happened.
What were you trying to do, just for the record?
Oh, I was just playing Sasha saying the proper pronunciation of his name.
And then it just fried your entire system like that.
I don't know what the hell it did. But it's weird. I'm having the same problem as Ezzy. My mic says it's plugged in, and yet it's getting no sound. So very bizarre.
It's going to be touch and go if we can make it through the next 30, 40 minutes of the show tonight. Fingers crossed we do so. But I was asking Ezzy, and I'll let him get back to it, Dave. In addition, we talked about the big names, we talked about the second line replacement. What else would you expect the Jets to be up to? Usually it's depth guys. Usually it's often one or two-way contracts that get signed on July 1st. So I want Ezzy to finish that thought, and then I want to hear from you.
Yeah. And just to finish the thought about Nikita Chibrikov, Dave, I was joking, I'm not Jimmy Roy or Mike Keane, and I certainly don't watch the Moose as much as you do. But yes, my personal opinion is based, having watched the Moose. I went to, 4 or 5 Moose games last year, and I obviously paid more attention to guys like Chibrikov and Lambert. I do think Chibrikov at 22 years old is ready to make the step up to the NHL, and it's ultimately going to be up to him, right, what happens at training camp. But, that's only going to be one hole to fill, right? Like we talked about the fourth line. We already know Rasmus Kupari, he's moved on. Is David Gustafsson, what's his future with the Jets, right? He's under contract, but he's been a guy that's found himself a healthy scratch. So when you talk about free agency, yes, I think the Jets are looking at free agency. If they're not able to sign Ehlers, most likely they're going to go after somebody to fill in the second line. But I think there's also going to be, those fourth line guys that they're going to take a look at as well. I don't know, defense to me is a funny one because the Jets, I don't see the Jets going after a defenseman in free agency because they've currently got 9 NHL defensemen under contract, or 8, I guess, without Hayden Fleury. Interested to see if they bring in Hayden Fleury. I really like Hayden Fleury as a third pair defenseman. So I know that's not a UFA signing.
Yes,
that's no. It's not a UFA, like a big name UFA signing is what I meant to say. But I think Hayden Fleury, Dave, would be fine as a third pair left side defenseman playing with Colin Miller or Luke Schenn. I think definitely a serviceable player. But to your point, Drew, I don't think the Jets are going to be I don't think the Jets are signing 7 players. Like I can see them signing a couple guys. Pia Suter is another guy whose name is out there. Had a good season for the Vancouver Canucks. I think he had 25 goals last year, right, Dave? I don't think it's a massive upgrade over Vlad Nemestikov, but I think Pia Suter's an interesting one, a good, reliable two-way guy, right? So there's definitely players out there. But again, it comes down to there's other teams after these players, right? Like I think, when you're talking about Besser, when you're talking about Mangiapane, like even though Mangiapane didn't have a very good year last year in Washington, I still think there's going to be a lot of teams after these guys. So it just ultimately comes down to, do the Jets match the price, and do the player thinks the Jets are the right fit?
Yeah, I definitely think so, Ezzy, and you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little unnerving not having the same sort of thing, but okay. I just want to make sure, rather than go on a screen and have Drew kind of trying to wave me down, saying I can't hear your words you're saying. And unfortunately, I really don't have a crystal ball. I mean, every year we kind of expect the Jets to have to go after a goaltender. Well, they don't have to do that this year, obviously, because their celebrity picker. I would not have gone with Eric Comrie. That was not my expectation. I thought maybe it was Jonathan Toews. Maybe it was.
I thought it was going to be you, Dave.
Murat did as well. I thought maybe Chris Jericho. Wasn't exactly certain where they were going to go. But they went with Eric Comrie, the Edmontonian who grew up in LA. So wasn't probably very difficult for him to get to the Peacock Theater last night and make the pick.
Dave, as an aside, sorry to jump in here. Can we talk about how cool it was that Adam Sandler made the pick for the Bruins?
Oh, that was amazing! Like that
was awesome. I realized the draft yesterday overall sucked. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like let's go back to that here for a second. Why did they constantly have the player talking to the team? It's like, what would you like to say to your new draft pick? It's like
they were trying to outsmart themselves. They were trying to be too cute by half with that sort of thing. I mean, just if you're going to do a decentralized draft, that's fine. The NFL does a decentralized draft, and as far as I know, always has. But just don't try to outthink yourself. Just don't try and add sort of cutesy elements when they don't work. It just makes for awkward, stilted television. I don't have a problem. Steve Yzerman today came out and said he liked the decentralized draft because it's easier on the teams themselves. It's easier on the draft rooms to conduct themselves and do their job and draft the best players possible without all the noise around them. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's on the NHL to make it a better television product. And they failed in that end by trying to be too cute with the draft house and everything else. Go watch the NFL draft and how ESPN produces it. It's draft pick is made, intensive video package about that draft, with that player that was drafted, with analysis, with insight, with this is what he does great. Watch it here on this video. This is where he struggles. Watch it here on this video. Then an interview with the player, and then they move on. It doesn't have to be too cute, and that's where the NHL failed yesterday. Is just make it something that it wasn't, and it was just awkward. Don't have awkward television.
Well,
let's just hope, Dave, that's the last decentralized draft ever.
I don't have a problem with the decentralized draft. I really don't, as long as you make it a better made-for-TV event, and that's where they failed. They failed in how to air it on television. I mean, do you really care that you can see the general managers on the floor of the draft? That's not any more exciting than it is normally. You have to make it a better television product, regardless of where the teams are themselves headquartered. Sorry, rant, diatribe, Dave.
No. I think that's a good point, Drew. And like I said, from my perspective, it was unnecessary. The whole draft house thing, I joke saying, I'm sure some GMs started to see what was going on and thought, you know what, I'm going to trade out of the first round just so I don't have to participate in this, because it was uncomfortable. I just didn't enjoy it. And I do want to say though, Erie Otters defenseman Matthew Schaefer, that was awesome. I mean, like really nicely done with the way the Islanders put for those who don't know, he lost his mother to cancer and he lost his billet mother as well recently. So, he's been obviously had a real tough year, and or tough time, I should say. And they had a cancer ribbon on his jersey when they selected him. They also had his mom's initials, I believe, in the stitching of the jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So nice touch by the Islanders. But what a well-spoken young man. And I think everybody,
and a stud defenseman. The Islanders have a stud on their hands with Schaefer,
but they also have what looks like a very quality human, Ezzy. And so I think that regardless of who you cheer for, I think that fans are going to be cheering for Matthew Schaefer for years to come, because what an incredible story, and he looks like a really pretty incredible young man. So anyways, that was an aside. Drew, I do agree though. Just the format was awful. The one thing I that was my question to Kevin Cheveldayoff actually last night during the Zoom, because I said, you were not a proponent of the decentralized draft. You were in by minority. He said it was 1/3, but it turned out I think it was 26 voted in favor, 6 voted against. I don't want to quibble with Kevin Cheveldayoff, but that is not 1/3. But the fact of the matter is that
that's more like 1/5.
but he was not in the majority by a lot. And what's interesting though is that the one advantage he did say was that they're not running home to get ready for free agency, but it did tend to even his answer to me was like, well, I already put in my vote, so you know where I stood, and that sort of thing. Yeah, it was whatever. So anyways, getting back to your question, Drew, which I believe was about free agency. I'm not entirely certain. But
it was more about, yes, additions on July 1st towards the bottom of the roster, and then we sort of segued that into the readiness of Nikita Chibrikov to jump into the NHL lineup.
Yeah, and again, like I said, look, Nikita Chibrikov lost some valuable time, obviously went down with injury in January, which ended his season. And I asked Kevin Cheveldayoff about Chibrikov on Thursday because I just was curious about his progress. He said he was progressing well, that he was coming over to North America to train, whether, I'm not sure, in Florida or Toronto, one of those two centers. So we'll see. There's going to be an opportunity for him, and when he's been put into the NHL, we've liked his game, right, guys? Like he's had that sort of, he plays with that edge. He's a shot disturber, if you will. Although we're not on the radio, so I could say it the other way. And I just think that he has a nose for the net. So we'll see if he's ready to make that jump. I mean, Jared Anderson-Dolan's signed, of course, for next year. You've got David Gustafson. You've got a lot of players. You've got a lot of options. Obviously, your depth in that regard took a bit of a hit when you lost Rasmus Kupari. But I really don't see the Jets being big players, other than maybe a small addition. And Ezzy's right. Why are you adding defense at this point? I mean, what are you going to do? Unless you just want to create a competition and okay.
Sorry, let me interrupt you. Why are you adding defense? I think you're adding a defense because you're looking to upgrade the third pair left side of your defense, to be perfully honest. I mean, I don't.
No, but I think what Dave's trying to say is like the third pair is for sure, but that's not a huge hole, right? Like it's a much bigger hole on this. When you're talking about the second line scoring, Drew, that's a much bigger hole to fill than on the third pair. And I think is Hayden Fleury, like the way I look at Hayden Fleury is like, based on what he did last year, is that not enough to get him another 1-year contract?
Yes, but I also don't think that it should necessarily pencil him in as your third pairing left side defenseman. Look, if Mitch Marner is going to the Vegas Golden Knights, and that is the betting favorite, and that's going to be at a significant price tag, there's going to be opportunities to take players off of the Golden Knights roster. Just mathematically, there has to be. That, if the Jets aren't going to be, aren't going to be successful in free agency, and if you're going to lose Nikolaj Ehlers, it might be time. And I know the no trades and the no moves and everything else, and we've killed that topic to death. I think the Jets have to be looking at trying to scavenge off of other teams' rosters to improve their roster.
Well, and I think one of the guys you're talking about, Drew, is William Karlsson, correct?
William Karlsson.
Yeah.
I mean, he would be certainly up there. There's players on the back end of Vegas that apparently are available. I mean,
William Karlsson would be a nice fit as a second line center. If you're talking about now, your center depth is no, Rube.
Go ahead. It's okay.
I'm almost done, Rube.
I think he was going to say his center depth. He's talking about Scheifele, Karlsson, Lowry, Toews. So he knows that you'd have quite a significant grouping, if you will. But I don't want to steal Ezzy's thunder. I think that's where he was going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If your center depth is Mark Scheifele, William Karlsson, Jonathan Toews, Adam Lowry, then Ruben's excited to get.
We'll let Ezzy deal with
his
children.
We're all good. We're all good. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, but it's that type of move, right? And then the question becomes, though, Drew, if you're acquiring William Karlsson, what are you giving up? Like I have, that's a tough one for me. I don't think you're giving up Braden Yager.
No, you're not giving up anything. Vegas needs to get him off their roster. They don't have the money for Mitch Marner.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what? Like, are you giving up like a mid-round pick? I have no idea.
I mean, it's not going. Again, you have a desperate team. That need. If they need to sign Mitch Marner, and they, fine, good. If they've determined that they need to sign Mitch Marner, that means you're going to have to subtract, which means that another team knows that you don't have much leverage. You don't have, you can't go asking for the moon because teams are aware that you're up against it. You're in a pinch. You have a difficult situation. So
they're not doing you any favors.
Yeah, they're not doing you any favors. They're not giving you necessarily. It's a salary dump. Mm-hmm. Salary dumps we've seen happen. Remember when Vegas dumped Max Pacioretty? They didn't get much for Max Pacioretty. I can't remember exactly what the trade was off the top of my head, but there's been plenty of times where teams have made, to try and work their salary cap, have made decisions where they end up subtracting a guy from the roster, not getting a lot for him because they're getting that salary off their books. That's where, a team like the Jets might need to be looking at and looking around. I mean, Carolina is not going to be that option because Carolina has a ton of cap space. So they're, it's not like, the Carolina is going to sign Nikolaj Ehlers and now somebody else has to go. You can't, that's not going to be an issue for Carolina. For Vegas, that's an issue. I mean, we're talking about Dallas apparently is still trying to go big game hunting, as the cliche is. Well, Dallas, has made some moves, but it's not like they're flush in cap space at this point in time either.
No, and that's part of. I think that speculation comes from Drew Mason Marchment being traded, and the return not like. I think he was at $4.5 million. So that's why there was speculation that then Dallas is that money is going to be used elsewhere in the free agent market, right? But you're absolutely right, though. I mean, I think the point you're trying to make here, Drew, is you got to be a little bit creative here to fill some of these holes, I think.
Right.
Especially if, your top targets, Dave, aren't going to work out, right? Like we talked about Brock Besser. We talked about Andrew Mangiapane, Pia Suter. There's other guys out there. Obviously, the Jets aren't going to be getting Mitch Marner. I mean, we can just put that out there right now. Marner is not an option for the Jets at 12 or 13 million or whatever he's going to get, right? So I think if you're not able to address your needs on the second line on the free agent market, you're going to have to do it via trade. And I think that's where, you hope Chevy's going to get a little bit creative and he's going to be able to go shopping and hopefully, get that second line center, get that second line winger without having to give up a roster player. That's the key to me, right? And, Braden Yager, I think, is a very intriguing prospect. I think he's got a very bright future. And ideally, let's be honest here, guys, the Jets don't have a ton of high-end forward prospects in the system. They don't, right? It's Braden Yager, it's Colby Barlow. I mean, obviously, Brad Lambert and Chibrikov, they're a little bit older. You'd throw them in there. But, I mean, if you're addressing your second-line needs and you're having to give up a Braden Yager,
I don't think that's an option for the Jets. Frankly,
that's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's on the table. Yeah. I don't think it's something they're unless it's a blow-away, mind-boggling return, the likes of which we can't wrap our simple brains around. I don't think the Jets are even considering that. I mean,
I feel like William Karlsson, for example, Drew. Yeah. Depending on how desperate the Golden Knights are to get rid of him, you'd think maybe like a third-round pick and Ville Heinola gets him. Maybe.
As just to bring some clarity and to end the conversation here, the Max Pacioretty deal, when they got rid of him from Vegas and sent him to Carolina, they had to send Dylan Coughlin, who of course played for the Jets this year, or the Moose, I should say, this year, and they got back future considerations, which, as everyone knows, is zero. So
that's what I'm saying.
Drew's not wrong. I mean, that's where you have to do this sort of. That's where you have to earn your money. That's where you have to work, is to try and see where's there an advantage I can take it, where there's a situation, that I can take advantage of.
No question about it. And that's where the Jets have to play a little bit of bully ball with teams that don't have the same salary cap flexibility that they need to sign some of the bigger names that might be available.
Boys, later today, William Karlsson pop-up show?
We'll see on those. We'll see about that. Time will tell on that front. We'll take our final commercial break. Sasha Bumidian is set to join us on the other side. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show is about to go into overtime on this Saturday morning.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this
Without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Saturday morning, we're into overtime here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. The reason we're going into overtime is to welcome our next guest to the program. He had his name called yesterday. The newest member of the Winnipeg Jets organization, Sasha Bumidian, is joining us here on the program. Sasha, good morning. Congratulations. Welcome to the Winnipeg Jets organization, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Appreciate you getting up with us bright and early this morning. Let's go back to last night. I mean, we've been doing this show for a long number of years, so we know it's always a special night to hear your name called. What was it like for you? What were your sort of emotions like when you get that announcement? When, did you have an inkling that it was going to be your name when the Winnipeg Jets were up at the and Eric Comrie was up at the microphone last night?
Yeah, I mean, unreal feeling. I have a bunch of family here, so to be able to have this moment with them is really special. So yeah, obviously, every player has been waiting for that day for a really long time, and yeah, just really exciting. So yeah, I mean, when Winnipeg's pick came along, I had really good talks with Winnipeg and felt really good about it. So yeah, so I was excited about that pick, and yeah, it ended up being good. So,
Sasha, you made the jump, of course, from the USHL to Boston University, and obviously, like, we've watched some of your highlights, we've read all the scouting reports and everything like that. But we've got you live on the show right now, so we wanted to ask you, how did your first year for Boston University go?
Yeah, it went good. Obviously, coming in pretty young. I knew it was gonna be tough and gonna be hard. Obviously, you play against a lot bigger and stronger players, but yeah, I had belief in myself and belief in my coaches that the plan we had in place for me was real strong, and that my development was gonna go rapidly. So very happy about my year at BU. We obviously had an unreal team and went really far. So yeah, unreal year and yeah, wouldn't change a thing.
Sasha, Drew mentions that you were, what you were feeling last night, but now what are you feeling today? I mean, you've had some time to let it soak in and sink in, and you got to celebrate with your friends and family. But now that you actually know where your destination is and kind of have a plan in place, got a chance to, I think you were with Jimmy Roy last night. So what did it mean for you to kind of get to become part of the organization and wake up this morning knowing you're a Winnipeg Jet?
Yeah, it's really special. Winnipeg, they seemed like they really wanted me, and I wanted to go to a place who really wanted me. That's pretty important. So yeah, I'm just really excited to get to Winnipeg and get to dev camp and get started and meet everyone. So yeah, I'm really happy and really fired up to get going. So can't wait.
Sasha Bumidian is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Sasha, forgive me. I just need to tell my audience real quickly, the Jets have just re-signed Hayden Fleury for 2 years at $950,000 per season. So I digress quickly. Back to you,
Another
Sasha.
left shot defenseman.
Yes, there you go. It's another left shot defenseman that can take you under his wing and give you some tutelage. And speaking of tutelage, a great year last year at Boston University. Head coach Jay Pandolfo, who played, just under 900 games, I think, at the NHL level over his illustrious career. How much did that teaching from Jay Pandolfo as the head coach in Boston, assist in your development and assist in your transition from a guy who was the youngest player at the NCAA level to a guy who was being relied on for significant minutes in the most critical time periods of the season last year?
Yeah, I mean, Pando was probably the biggest reason I wanted to go to BU. He's an unreal person and an unreal coach. So yeah, we all love him, and he's got the perfect mix for being a hard coach, and yeah, putting you in place if you have to be put in place. But he's also obviously been on the player side of it and knows kind of what we feel at every point of the year and kind of what we need. So it's a great balance. And like I said, I chose BU mostly because of Pando. So yeah, he's unreal, and the way he helped me develop and kind of excel throughout the year was really good. I feel like we had a really good plan in place, and we just stuck with it. So yeah, nothing but good things to say.
And Sasha, your dad would have known Jay Pandolfo from the New Jersey Devils days, right? So I'm sure that connection factored in as well, right? And I wanted to ask you about your dad, right? You mentioned the Devils. He was drafted by the Devils. Your dad had a long career in the NHL and Europe, obviously, and has been involved in the NHL, most recently with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I'm sure you're asked about this all the time, but what type of impact? I imagine it's an immense impact on your career, but can you just talk a little bit about that and how your dad has influenced your NHL young career?
Yeah, like you said, immense impact. He's gone through what I'm going through right now and will be going through in the future. And yeah, he's been with me every step of the way, just like my mom. And yeah, I can't thank them enough for what they've done for me. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I lean on my dad a lot. Obviously he played professionally, and he's done everything. Professionally played in every league. So he's been there, done that. So yeah, whenever I have a question, whenever I'm struggling or whatever, I use him a lot, and it's a huge help. And yeah, like I said, very thankful for him.
Sasha, we mentioned it when we were talking to you last night after you got selected, but born in Finland, raised in Sweden, spent the last 4 years in the States, and of course now drafted by a Canadian team. So your passport's going to be well filled out. But from your perspective, how has that kind of assisted you in terms of, learning to play in different sort of situations? Because you know how to play in Sweden on the international ice, but you also know how to play in North America on, this surfaces. So how do you think that's kind of helped you as a player?
Yeah, I think it's helped me a lot. Like you said, I think I've played played everywhere, so it helps a lot. I mean, the change from going from Europe in Sweden to coming here 4 years ago, obviously, it wasn't the easiest thing coming at 14 and just kind of learning the ways not only on the ice but off the ice as well. So I think it helps a lot for me to kind of be able to adapt wherever I am and play my best hockey no matter where it is. So 100%. I feel like it helps a lot.
You mentioned the off ice, so let's Sasha Bumidian, let's get to know him a little bit more aside from being a hockey player. What's your passion? What are the things that, when you're not laser focused on hockey 24/7, what do you enjoy doing that, to sort of unwind or get your head away from the game for a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm a pretty energetic guy. I don't like to sit still too much. I don't play any video games or anything like that. So, but
that
yeah,
must be rare for among your teammates.
Yeah, it's a little rare. But yeah, when I'm away from the rink, I just like to spend time with my family. I mean, it's been 2 years where I haven't lived at home. I played in juniors in Youngstown last year and then now at BU, and I'm fortunate that they moved to Boston this year, so I was really close to them this year, and I feel my best when I'm tight with my family and friends. So I just hang out with my family and friends, whatever they're down to do, I'm going. So yeah, like I said, pretty energetic guy and like to be outside and do different stuff and do different activities. So yeah.
So Sasha, we got Jets development camp coming up next week. You're in LA, as we mentioned earlier. So do you have your hockey equipment there? Like, how quickly are you going to be getting to Winnipeg for development camp?
Yeah. I believe I'll get there tomorrow. But yeah, it starts Monday. So I have my gear here. Ready to go. And yeah, like I said earlier, I'm just fired up to get there and meet everyone and start to have camp. So it's going to be exciting. But yeah, I believe I get there tomorrow.
Sasha, because of your kind of varied experience in playing in different places, obviously, Swedish internationally, so you would probably have some familiarity with the Jets second rounder, Alphonse Frey, who they drafted last year. And I know you mentioned it last night, but just for our audience today, do you have any familiarity with anyone in the organization from a player perspective?
Not too much. From my agent, I've he has two guys on the team. He has Pionk and Sandberg.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's just told me that they love it there and that it's a great spot. So I don't have too many connections with Winnipeg, but like I said earlier, I'm excited to get there. But yeah, that's the only connection is my agent has a few players there. So yeah, he just told me good things about Winnipeg and that they like it. So I'm fired up.
It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to develop a hockey player. You mentioned your parents, so you know the impact of Jay Pandolfo, but there's got to be other people that sort of throughout your career that you've been able to lean on and have been able to be sort of your North Star in guiding you to this point of your development in your career. Who do you really sort of think about and pay tribute to on a day like today, on a night like last night, in helping you develop and get to this point?
Yeah. Like you said, I pay the most tribute to my family, my immediate family, both my parents and my brothers. I mean, we push each other all the time to be better and be the best. So yeah, big thanks to those guys. but yeah, I mean, everyone I grew up with, I mean, they all believed in me and kind of stood by my side the whole time. And yeah, I mean, ever since I started playing hockey, I kind of have to thank everyone along the way, for all the small details and small, whatever you want to say, whatever they've helped with. I mean, I've gotten a lot of help from a lot of different people. So big thanks to everyone in Sweden and wherever where I played hockey there, and yeah, now here in Columbus and Youngstown and at BU. So yeah, big thanks to everyone, and I definitely wouldn't be here without all of them. So.
And Sasha, rest assured, we have one IKEA, and with all the Swedish players that are being drafted, maybe there's a plan for a second IKEA. I'm not sure about that, but we have at least one. I go there. I take my kids there regularly for the Swedish meatballs. So just wanted to get that in there. I'm not sure if you knew we had an IKEA, but wanted to ask you about your skating, because obviously, you're known as an elite skater. Is that something that it's just always been a strength of your game and something that you've always worked on?
Yeah, well, my little brother plays hockey as well, and we've always been pretty natural, good skaters. But yeah, we're not gonna take away from how hard we've worked on it either. We, ever since we started playing hockey, we've done different skates, solely focusing on skating. Whether it's power skating, working with figure skating coaches for your edge work, just different types of skating coaches, and working twice a week, early mornings, and just without pucks, just solely working on your skating. So yeah, worked a lot on it, and something that we really take pride in. So yeah, we keep working on it all the time, and I feel like, yeah, it's both mine and my little brother's biggest asset. So yeah, look to keep working on it.
Sasha, we always look to make comparisons and say, well, this player is going to project to be like this. And everybody is unique, and you are your own unique player, and you've got your own unique style. But if you did have to kind of say to yourself, I kind of might model my game after this player, maybe who would be your NHL choices?
Yeah. I have two guys I really like to watch and try to play like. Obviously, they're really good players, so a little hard to match them right now. But yeah, I like to watch Miro Heiskanen on Dallas. He big left shot defenseman who skates like the wind and logs a lot of minutes for his team. He's out there whenever, in whatever situation. He's out there on the power play, PK, and kind of does everything for his team. So type of defenseman I want to be, and he's out there when he has to shut down another team's top line and make it hard on them. So love to watch him. And then I watch Jake Sanderson in Ottawa as well. Also a big left shot defenseman who skates really well and also gets matched up against the other team's top line to rely on him to shut them down and make it hard on them. And then also he's on the power play PK and does everything. Logs a lot of minutes for the team and kind of has a big impact in every game. So that's the type of defenseman I want to be, and kind of that two-way guy who has a big impact anywhere on the ice. So yeah, love to watch those two.
Sasha, last one for you. We appreciate you joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. What do you know about Winnipeg itself? I mean, you obviously know the organization. I'm sure you've seen some highlights of things that happen come playoff time, let's say. Here,
I told Sasha about the IKEA as well.
Now that you know we have an IKEA, exactly. What do you sort of know about Winnipeg as a city, or is it just you're excited to sort of find out anew for a guy who's lived all around the world, as we've talked about?
Yeah.
You get to add another destination to your list, at some point in time shortly.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Winnipeg. I just know that the fans are wild and really passionate. So yeah, like you said, I've moved around quite a bit, so I'm just excited to go to Winnipeg and explore a little bit and see what it's like. So yeah, really excited to get there, but I don't know, as of right now, I don't know too much. I just know that the fans are really passionate and love hockey. So That's
well,
great.
off the top of my head, I don't think the Jets have anybody that played at Boston College, so I think you can avoid that sort of awkwardness.
Well, technically Keith Kachuk, Jets 1.0.
Oh, there you go. I don't think he's around the organization much anymore.
No.
Well, there won't be any BC rivalries in the dressing room, at least to start. So they got that'll be good to avoid that sort of awkwardness and the Beanpot rivalry and everything along those lines.
Yeah, that's probably good.
Sasha Bumidian, Jets first-round draft pick. Congratulations again. Thanks so much for joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll see you in Winnipeg next week, and congratulations and all the best to you in the next few days.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
Take care, Sasha. Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. There he goes, Sasha Bumidian joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to Jets PR staff for organizing that and working with us to make that happen this morning. And, of course, all the more reason for us to go into overtime to talk to Sasha, as well as to talk about the signing of Hayden Fleury.
Did I not kind of call that earlier in the show, boys?
Well, we talked about it as being an option. And something.
No, but I said I was in favor of it. So I'm just saying, I mean, I think Chevy was listening. Chevy, I think they were talking to Hayden Fleury's representatives, Dave. And then Chevy heard me talking about it, saying that Hayden Fleury should get a 1-year contract. And Chevy said, let's give him 2 years. Plus, that means that Dave can break the news on the website, illegalcurve.com.
Already posted.
While the show is going on. So I think Chevy is doing us a favor here on a Saturday morning.
Although, Drew, you weren't, we'll get to the Hayden Fleury news in 1 second, but Drew, you weren't quite accurate when you said that he has no rivals here in the organization, because Zach Naring, who he went up against in the Frozen Four, playing for Western Michigan.
Take it easy, Dave.
The Jets' third rounder. I mean, just saying, there may be a little beef there, but regardless.
We'll cross that. You'll cross that. I don't know that there's much long-term history between the Western Michigan Broncos and Boston University and the Terriers. But yeah, we'll have to. You can ask Sasha about that this week.
I will indeed.
Development camp.
I'll ask Zach Naring about it.
There you go. You can ask both of them about it. Hopefully, they won't come to blows. And
that sounds like the IC Summer Series. I think, Dave.
Good point. Good point.
Speaking, some of the IC Summer Series. Well, we got a couple more weeks still of IC shows before we go into the Summer Series. Again, we'll go until after the show on July the 12th. So next week, next Saturday, then the Saturday after that, and then we will all disappear. Of course, we can always pop up as necessary, but we will disappear for a little while after that. Returning on the Saturday of the Banjo Bowl, as we always do here. That's our schedule. That's our summer schedule.
Dave's going fishing with Buff in a couple of weeks.
Well, There you go. 9 defensemen, the Winnipeg Jets, once they get Dylan Sandberg signed. The Jets will have 9 defensemen on one-way contracts. So you wonder if there's another shoe that's going to have to drop along those lines, especially with a guy like Elias Salomonsson wanting to crack into there as well. I don't have any problem. The amount for Hayden Fleury is low, under $1 million. It's 2 years.
You make that every 2 weeks, Drew.
It's true. I mean, I got to make it rain every now and then, but it's a no-risk contract as far as
he's a good defenseman. Like, he's a solid defenseman, and I think he did a good job last year. And, you mentioned the 9 defensemen under contract. You wonder, like, are the Jets going to move one of Billy Hanel and Logan Stanley, Dave? I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I think you're right.
Luke Schenn and Colin Miller are under contract for 1 more year, right? So I think it's a low risk contract, and I think he's a very serviceable guy, very dependable defenseman to fill out your roster.
Yeah, I mean, and he obviously wanted some permanence. He wants to be able to. He was talking about his family liking Winnipeg and settling down and being able to have a.
He's a good Saskatchewan boy, Dave.
Good Saskatchewan boy, one province over. So I don't have a problem with the deal. I don't think you're not blocking. That's what I mean. Again, that's always the hesitancy, right? And ultimately, how it plays out for Elias Salomonsson, I know there's a lot of promise. I think the kid's going to be a stud personally, but again, he's young. He's a 2022 draft pick, right? He's not let's remember when I compare him to Dylan Sandberg, do I say Dylan Sandberg light or Dylan Sandberg right? But ultimately, regardless of what it is, that's right. But the point is,
I like that.
But what I'm saying,
I'm into it, Dave. I'm into it.
I knew you would be. That's why I said it. I knew it would cause consternation with Drew, and I knew I'd get a chuckle out of it. But the fact of the matter is, Dylan Sandberg's 5 years older. So, I mean, he's not quite there yet. I mean, obviously, he won the championship with Skellefteå in the Swedish Hockey League. He's played really well for the Manitoba Moose in his first season here in North America. And we know that Scott Arniel's a huge fan of his based on the way he's talked about him the last 2 training camps. So I think he'll be in the mix. I think he'll have a good chance. I think his waiver eligibility is going to hurt him given the mix that's up there with the Winnipeg Jets right now. But ultimately, the nice thing for him is that he's not blocked to be in the league as a full-time NHLer for 26, 27. So that's the most important thing. And again, the guys who are on the left side are still years away from challenging. So the Fleury deal really doesn't do anything other than create competition. And, we'll see who really, the Jets gave Logan Stanley a big window, right? Drew played almost 60 games last year. Yeah. So we'll see if it's his, side, if it's his spot on the left side, or if it's going to be Fleury or if it's going to be Heinola. Because remember, Heinola, was in the mix until he got injured 2 straight training camps. So a healthy Ville Heinola, well, we'll see. If it's not for Winnipeg, then it may be for someone else. But that's why I say training camp is so fascinating, boys, because you ultimately have to see what's going to happen. Then we can't make predictions because we don't know, right? So we'll see, but it's going to be fascinating. We'll keep it locked to illegalcurve.com for the rest of the day. We're going to have all the latest on the Jets.
Exactly right. So illegalcurve.com will be your home for all your draft day news, draft day 2 news, and all the interviews that'll be conducted over the course of the next few hours. And of course, we will be your home for coverage on Tuesday and free agency day. If necessary, we'll pop up with a live show. But Dave M will have the website covered top to bottom with all your latest Winnipeg Jets news and audio in what will be a busy 48, 72, 96 hours ahead with regard to the Winnipeg Jets. And then next Saturday, of course, we'll talk about it all on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. If you haven't already done so today, and really, what have you been waiting for? Be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the podcast. Let us know what you think of the programming. That's what we ask of you in exchange for us being here to bring you this kind of in-depth analysis, puns, and humor galore. Winnipeg Jets will be up on the clock in a little while. Some trades are occurring. None of them are of any significance. The Ottawa Senators have acquired defenseman Jordan Spence from the LA Kings for the 67th pick this year. So that would be an early 3rd round pick, if my math is correct, and a 6th round pick in 2026. So a 3rd and a 6th to LA for Jordan Spence, defenseman who, again, there was a logjam of defense on the Kings back end. So he goes from to the West Coast to the.
I like that move for Ottawa. Spence is a good defenseman. That's an interesting trade there, actually.
Yeah, he goes to Ottawa as well. We'll have it all covered for you, folks. You know that illegalcurve.com is your home for everything.
Oh, and Drew, just any, and of course, any of the draft picks, they'll be if the Jets can media get them, they'll be on Zoom, and of course, they'll be featured on our YouTube channel and illegalcurve.com.
Exactly right. That's exactly right, Dave M. Big thanks to all of you for joining us on this Saturday morning. I know it's a long weekend, sort of. For a lot of people, it is. Be safe this long weekend. Whatever you're going to do it responsibly. Have fun. Celebrate this great country of ours on Tuesday, but do it safe. Do it well. We want to see you back here next Saturday for another edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Big thanks to Play Now, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, Seagram's, and of course our friends at Wheatland Hockey. They support us, we support them. We want you to support them as well.
Drew, by the way, last thing, happy Canada Day. We won't get a chance to say it, so I know you said it, but I want to make sure I say it. Happy Canada Day to everybody. I mean, It's on Tuesday, and kind of a special shout out to Don Cherry. He hung up the podcast, the microphone.
He actually didn't. It made it sound like he was going to, and then he went back and spoke to I think his name's Joe Warmington.
Joe Warmington from the Sun.
And said no, he was just retiring. He was just ending the season. He'll be back podcasting next season at the ripe old age of, I think, 92 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, well then I'm gonna hold that in abeyance for Don Cherry, but I will keep my sentiments on Canada Day. Happy Canada Day. Let's
try to get Grapes on the show.
We should actually. I'd be very down for that. Saturday Night Hockey has not been the same without him, and so let's. And
if we're talking about Grapes, 100%, he should be in the Hall of Fame in the media wing.
He should have been
of the Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned. I realize not everybody agrees with his opinions and everything like that, but Don Cherry has done so much for the sport of hockey. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want to get into a long thing about it, but I mean, I grew up on the Rock'em Sock'em VHS tapes and the Rock'em Sock'em DVDs and everything like that. So I'm with
Still
Dave.
watch it, for God's sake.
Grapes is an absolute beauty. Even though if his time didn't end very gracefully.
I'm trying to remember what I think it was Rock'em Sock'em 2. Because it was a K, I think it was K-Tel, if I'm not mistaken. Remember K-Tel? It was either K-Tel or K5. I can't remember which one. They were the distributor.
K-Tel.
So K-Tel, there was a launch, because it was the launch for Rock'em Sock'em 2 was here in Winnipeg, and there was an event at a local establishment, and I happened to know the family, and so myself and my other good friend, we got to meet Don Cherry, back when they released Rock'em Sock'em 2. Gosh, that must have been, 1987?
I was going to say, didn't it get to Rock'em Sock'em 25, for God's sake? So
something like that. It was a long, long, long time ago, but I certainly burnt through my copy of Rock'em Sock'em, watching it over and over and over and over again. But yes, I would have, the end of the career notwithstanding, I would agree with you, Ezzy, that he should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame for his contributions. But great that Jen Botterill is going to be there as well. That was terrific.
Absolutely. Shout out to Jen Botterill. Yeah. 3 Olympic golds. Just one of the greatest female hockey players of all time from Winnipeg. So very well deserved for Jen.
Exactly. That's it for us. Be safe. Be well. Have a great Saturday, everybody. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.